No, I usually don't do the startup thing, so you guys got to give me a sec.
You're singing another union song. You goddamn right I am. Why sing about the unions again? They have all died away. We are now in the midst of a brand new world economy.
Next generation carriers and guests are individual union members speaking in a personal capacity, and they do not represent the views of the NELC, the United States Postal Service, or any other entity that has spoken on this program. Also, if you'd like to get in contact with Next Generation Carriers podcast, send us an email at nextgenerationcarriers@gmail.com. Make sure to subscribe to us on your favorite podcast platform and also on YouTube, Facebook, Next Generation Carriers. If you're a branch president or shop steward and you want to be part of a monthly Next Generation Carriers Roundtable discussion with me, please reach out to us. My name is James Capone. I am a branch president of Branch 764 in Dedham, Massachusetts. This is a roundtable discussion. If you guys like to introduce yourselves, this is something we are going to try to do monthly to kind of give an inside out of the NELC. Greg, please introduce yourself.
Hey, James, thanks for having us on. Greg Samoluk, Branch President 334, Framingham, Natick, Ashland.
Paul?
Okay, Paul Belanger, Branch 44, covering 22 towns in New Hampshire, and I've been at it for 39 years. So I don't know if I'm next generation or old generation, or I'm one of the generations. I'm
You're all the
generational. How's that?
generations.
I'm generational.
All right, Barry.
All right, my name is Barry Glines, Vice President, Branch 764, Dedham, Massachusetts. James, thanks for having me on tonight. Been a letter carrier for over 18 years.
So, want to give a little bit of a rundown of how I got started. The idea being showing everybody that we all started at one position in our union. We were probably not the strongest member, and we worked our way through, which will teach anybody that you can start. I had started in a station in Boston. I wasn't really involved in the union for my first 10 years, maybe went to one or two meetings. I transferred over to Dedham when they got rid of PTFs. They kind of told us we had to find a station or they would move us. I'd come to Dedham, a little bit smaller. I started going to meetings because I had a branch president that would be on your ass the next day saying, hey, well, where were you last night? Oh, you should have gone to the meeting. So you decided to start going to meetings. He retired. We went through a couple of presidents, and I got more and more involved because I saw issues that were bothering me at first, coming in to step in and help until I had moved up to becoming president. Since then, I've been part of the Fight Like Hell rally that was in Boston that drew over 500 people, and joined this podcast. So the idea behind this podcast is to help train the younger carriers, help them learn aspects of the job while also going through contractual issues and being able to attract the attention of older carriers as well. Greg, you want to give me a little background of how you started?
Yeah, so I've been a carrier since I was actually a casual the years I was in college. And, when I graduated college, like every other 23-year-old, didn't know what I was going to do. Started at the post office, in 2003. Would go to some meetings just as almost like a social thing. And if you asked me what happened at the union meetings for the first 10 years of my career, I couldn't tell you anything. And then around 2014, 2015, I started to really get involved. I had some good mentors in my union, which I try to do now. And so they put me on like the safety committee. They sent me to Boston to do that JRAP thing and redo the routes. And that's when I first got my first interaction with my fellow carriers, where they're like, oh my God, you changed my route to this and that. And I'm like, do I really want to do this? So then in 2017, I was asked to run for vice president, did 2 terms of vice president. 2021, height of COVID, my president was near retirement, said, I think you should run. I think you'd be good. So since 2021, I've been president. I just got reelected to my 3rd term. And, I think, I emceed the Fight Like Hell rally with, help organize it with all these guys, James and Chris. And, I just see my role, and I say this to my members, as the post office, they claim they have an HR department, but I see my role as the branch president as the person that these people can go to. Like my office, you come in there if you gotta release some stress, if you got a vent, you come in my office and you close the door. And I just try to show them, this is what a union is. We protect each other, and you know, now that I'm the elder statesman, I try to get more people involved. My vice president has been there. He just got elected. He's only been there for 3 years. I got a steward that's been there for 3 years, and just a mix of everybody getting involved. And uh, I think we'll get into it, but this TA really opened my eyes to what goes on at the national level. We've been in Zooms almost every week for the last month with all this stuff. So I think we just want to get podcasts are so big now. There's so many post office podcasts. I think we want to get people listening and get people educated. You got some really smart presidents in this region and all over the country. So I think podcasts are a good way to spread that message. So Paul, I don't know if you want to do a little introduction now.
Yeah, yeah. So it's funny. I came straight out of college to the post office as well. I had a bad year at college. I put in for a job at the post office, and at the time, the post office was better than any job you could get coming out of college. It was so competitive. And when I got that job, I said, "That's it. I'm set." I bought a Sunbird GT turbo convertible, and then I never looked back. I never looked back. I never looked back. I actually spent probably, I think this is a scary number, probably 30 years, 25, 30 years without being involved in the union at all. At all. I would complain. I was just as full of piss and vinegar back then, but I just didn't know how to direct it. So I kept thinking that the union was screwing me. And then I started looking closer and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try to change it from within. So once my kids went to college and I had less to do at home, I became an alternate steward. That was only about 9, 10 years ago. And then I became a workers' comp officer. I went to um, formally and beyond training. I went to advocacy training. Now I'm an arbitration advocate. I became the vice president. Now this is my first term as president of our branch. So I'm excited. I know you guys are the Next Generation podcast, and I joke about it because I'm kind of the old timer here, but I don't feel like it. I'm so pissed off at what's going on that I think it's really the mindset of we're not going to take this shit. I think that's where we're at. It's not so much. You know, I saw somebody post that it might have been you, James. It might have been John that said something about we got to get rid of these Table One guys. Hey, don't come after me, dude. I'm one of you guys. I'm one of you guys, and
I'm table one too, so it wasn't me.
okay. All right, all right. So yeah, it's. I think it's a frame of mind. It's just we're at the point, like you said, where social media is telling us right now that we're not alone. So it's a fight, and I think it's great to be in the fight. And this is the way to spread the news.
Mm. Barry, how about you?
Yeah, I got into the postal service right after college. Both my grandfathers were mail handlers, and my late uncle, was a rural carrier, and then he became a city carrier right before he passed away. But anyways, I jumped in because after college and during college, I got tired of being laid off from jobs, and at the time it was tempting to jump in. I took the exam, and unfortunately, the only position available at that time was transitional employment, which was decent pay. I mean, didn't come along with anything, but I said I'm going to give this thing a shot because once you're in, it's a good job from my experience growing up, seeing my grandfathers and my uncle. I knew I wasn't going to have it easy to get in like that, but I took the chance and I really never looked back, even though I went through a lot of stuff with being transitional and all that happened throughout all these contracts where it was eliminated and became CCA. But we'll get into that, I'm sure, later in the show. But um, honestly, I got involved with the union right away by going to meetings because they had no technology at the time for me the way it is today. I mean, if you didn't go to a meeting, you weren't, especially being new, you really had no idea what was going on. So I started going to meetings and getting adapted and just attend and learn how everything goes. Started really getting involved in it, and then things happened with the cards that were dealt to me. So I kind of leaned away from it for a little while because I was a little butthurt. But I got back into it because I noticed in my office that certain things were being violated that I knew about just from reading and doing my own thing. And when James, when you became vice president, you said, would you like to jump aboard and become treasurer? So I took the opportunity. I became treasurer of the branch. We had to handle some things there to get that thing back on track because we felt like we were losing the branch, and I think we succeeded in that. And then from there, I ran for vice president, and I've been vice president of the branch for what, over a year now? Would you say?
Yep, over a year.
But my main thing is I love putting up the fight for people because I had to put up the fight for myself through my career, and I know a lot of people going right now. They're timid, and with everything, you need a good rep that has been through it, that is not afraid to speak their voice for them or represent them when a lot of people aren't knowledgeable. And I hope really I see a lot of improvement now over the years with all this technology and the younger people jumping in, and it's very important, and especially for a branch that at the time was really its own little private branch and did its thing. But when it comes down to a strong branch, you need to show these members and teach these members the right things to become strong and you know be a good union member. So I enjoy moving up through the ranks a little bit, and I've been offered a couple of other from my involvement in the union. I was a member of the Tyree team, which I worked out of Region 13 in Virginia. Very good experience. Saved a lot of jobs there, I feel, and that's what it's all about. So that's a little bit about my.
One of the things I find interesting is we all kind of have close to the same background. I feel like there's a lot of carriers that do. Growing up in Boston, there weren't many jobs you could get. You'd either be MBTA, cop if you were lucky. Letter carriers was one of the paths, and getting onto the post office was huge. I'd always seen the letter carriers in my neighborhood that they had houses, they had nice cars, they had a summer house in Florida, and they're working hard. Getting to the post office is a great thing, and in regards to us at that time, a lot of us, it was our path. A lot of us couldn't go to college, so post office was the future to get in there. You were lucky. And then you get to being involved in the union, where a lot of us weren't involved in the beginning, and we kind of just went along with it until we got involved, and then we started learning the process, and then we worked our way up through the system, and that's a huge thing that kind of binds what I feel a lot of letter carriers. Tonight, I wanted to discuss the TA, give you guys some informative background, and also let you guys understand where we're coming in our feelings in regards to it. So with that,
So Capone, just to add on to something Paul and Barry both said. So think about what Paul said. He goes, I got a job at the post office. I was able to buy a car, and people said, "Oh, wow, you got a job at the post office." So my question is that does everybody believe that's still a thing? So if someone
no,
gets hired as a
no, not at
it's
all.
gone. That's gone. The
We're
dream that
13.5% behind Amazon's starting pay. It is not. Sadly, unfortunately, I don't think they're getting many applications anymore, and a
Mhm.
lot of them, it's like between the post office and Best Buy at this point. There's no sense of a career coming out of it, or yay, great, I got into the post office. Um,
James, I got to tell you a good
Amazing
one. Remember,
there.
I told you that I was trying to wolf down some dinner because a friend stopped by before, just around the podcast time. Well, that friend is a PTF, and he resigned today.
Yeah,
He
I
resigned
see
today
it
to
all
get
the
a job
time.
at to get a job at Bass Pro because
I, I it's
you know
it's insane. I saw the numbers, and I don't have the numbers on me, but we went from, like, once you'd been in here for 6 years, the odds of you stepping away was like 90%. You were staying there once you were past 6 years. We're having more veteran people leave now. People plus 6 years, and less veteran from the services applying to the job now.
yep.
It's insane.
well, think about how much has changed though. Like, so you you start a couple years ago. You start during COVID, and COVID's a disaster. Where everybody needs us. So you make it through COVID, and then you're like, my reward's coming someday, and the reward never comes. You promise this new contract, and then you look at your health insurance premiums that went up in the last year, and then you don't get enough raise in your contract to cover that. It's really turning people away, and the appeal of the post office when I first started, I tell people, "Oh, what do you? Oh, I work for the post office. What's the first reaction? Great benefits, right? Great
Yeah,
benefits,
ain't there
great
no
job.
more.
Is it there for anybody other than the top step? And the top step, it's a nice living, but with the cost of everything in the world today, and it's become a sad state of affairs. And I think, um, like, and what Barry said is like people need to be educated. And to anybody listening, it starts with going to meetings. You're nervous if you're a CCA or a PTF, and you're more. And if your president doesn't welcome you, I would say there's a lower percentage chance of that. But you're always going to be welcome at a meeting, and you should go and ask questions. And I tell my PTFs, there's no stupid question. There's no such thing as a stupid question when you first start at the post office. So, but it all comes with educating people, like Barry just said. And if we can just educate a few more people, I think that's a good start because we need this membership better informed than they are.
And okay, I'll tell you the tentative agreement that we have now. The only reason we don't have a good tentative agreement is because of the negotiations that went on. 100%, I can 100% tell
So,
you that somebody else would have got us a much different contract, and I hate to say it, or a different process would have got a better contract
and
for
you're
us.
right, Paul. If what we are led to believe, the TA, the decision we got was what they discussed. I went through it today. Not once. So one of the arguments the post office makes is, hey, they say it's because the carriers want more pay, but that's subjective. We've been there was the ruling in what was the moderate restraint, a close wage gap from the 1984 decision from Kerr, and saying, hey, they may want more money, but we're slowing the gap. And the union makes the argument that in regards to, hey, comparable wages, our wages are dropping 3 times faster than the other companies in private sector, and UPS is what we like comparing it to. Da da da. Not anywhere do they argue, hey, here's how much you're paying CCAs in Boston, Massachusetts. Here's how much rent costs. It doesn't cover it. They argue, back and forth about, hey, getting the wages closer. And was an argument ever made showing them you can't afford to live in Boston, New York, San Fran on the pay you're paying these people? Why are they not showing them that? They're living in poverty levels. They said that the buying power is 20% less than it was in 1972.
You know what else I didn't see either, James, was why didn't they actually talk about the plans that the post office has to save money? I don't agree with the whole consolidation shit, but if their goals come into play, they're gonna have plenty of money. Their first quarter just showed it. That should have been on the bargaining table as their first quarter was the example of what they think is going to happen from now on. So why didn't we use that?
Yeah.
Well, and we were all at rap sessions and presidents meetings throughout the last 700 days. And what do we see? We saw the post office losses on a slideshow. Well, if you're gonna use that argument, then delve into why they lose money. Look, like, where's the waste? We know it's not with the city letter carriers because we look at table two and we know it's a bargain. But where's the waste? We talked before the show about, I have 8 supervisors in my office and a postmaster, a level 21 postmaster. There's about $900,000 there. Do you need all those people? How many, if someone's going to call about their package, missing, eventually that's going to be outsourced, right? So why are we look at why we're losing money, and that argument is never made. They're so top heavy, but what I would love to know if that why that argument isn't made. What are you doing to save money? And it's not the city letter carriers, because you continue to hire city letter carriers all over the country. They claim they're going out of business. There was a hiring event the other day in Wayland. So why are you losing money? Um, and just if we're going off on the TA, and I think we're all going to have opinions, the post office argument, which is ridiculous to me, is the existence of the TA should not be ignored while the arbitrator is not bound by the TA, reflects that what both parties, after good faith negotiations, considered an acceptable agreement. Well, that's the post office argument, but the union by 71% didn't consider that acceptable. So this TA should be ignored. Actually, this TA shouldn't. The arbitrator never should have even seen this TA. He shouldn't have put the work rules through either. So,
And you're right, because
Well,
they
you
also make the argument that in the 1978 Haley Award and the 2007 Fishman Gold Award, that they didn't use the failed failed TA. They made adjustments from both sides to make it different, but not equal. Different, but still set. But they say themselves they didn't use the TAs. What made this time different that they decided they were just going to use the TAs?
I think that they said that they didn't use the TA exactly, but they used it as a framework.
The framework was pretty damn fucking close, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah,
feel
yeah.
this thing too with the change of presidency and the procrastination. Guys, I'm going to be honest with you. Ever since I started my career here, I do not understand why our union procrastinates on these contracts. They always supersede the time frame of them. Okay, and I think, in my opinion, this time around it bit us in the ass because of the issues with Renfro. Okay, the delay in finalizing this thing and getting it up there, it put us in a position, especially with the change of presidency, open up the door for privatization. They forced this thing up there to seal the deal. Okay.
In 2019, the post office showed profit. When we were first able to negotiate this contract, they had shown profit. Why wouldn't you go to arbitration right then and there so they can't use the argument of we've lost too much money? They had a profit at that quarter.
but he should have went to, and like people are probably listening to this saying they probably heard about the TA, but like, and they probably have older carriers that say, "Oh, it always takes this long." But does anybody ever ask why? He's got a set amount of days to talk to them, and I'm not gonna shit on him for his personal issues, but even after that, Rolando and Barner were doing some negotiations. We never got where they were in the negotiations. So once that negotiation breaks apart, and I know Brian has always explained it, it's negotiated in a linear pattern. But on your podcast a month ago, he said, "Well, the post office offered 2 billion, and we offered 17 billion." So I'd like to know when that offer was made, because you're never coming together if that's the difference, right? So go to arbitration then. What do you got to lose by going to arbitration then?
And the idea that it always happens, that shows. Okay, then, so it's happened before Renfro. It happened with Rolando. It happened before that. Why have we never stopped doing that and just settled with, oh, yeah, it's going to be late. Why have we never worked on that issue of it?
Because it's a defeatist attitude that people get complacent in their positions, and I'm telling you, I'm not taking shots at anybody, but when you don't put that bag on your shoulder and you don't walk through ice or heat, it changes you. And it's like people were hurting out there. They wanted that back pay, right? People wanted that little raise, even though it wasn't acceptable. And it's just like everything in this world. People just get out of touch with the real world sometimes. And I think the TA, the vote was a message, and we saw what happened. Even if he was bound to do it by resolutions, we saw what happened after that. And one of the things that I think the thing that set me off, and I think you guys were there in our rap session in Providence, when it was in the president's meeting the Sunday night, and then actually at the rap session, where the post office refuses to compare us to UPS.
We've been making the argument for 40 years.
We deliver, but who delivers the most, or did deliver the most UPS packages? Probably more than UPS. We did. So if I saw that, I would have counted. The post office would rather, no offense to DoorDash or Uber Eats, they'd rather compare us to them. And that was said at that rap session. And I was personally offended. And Capone, you saw me in that president's meeting. I was really fired up about that. I thought that was, if the post office thinks of us like that, then we're never gonna, we're never gonna come together. That's why arbitration should have been sent a year ago.
And Greg, you make a great argument, because it says the USPS makes the argument 40 years of arguing that UPS is our closest competitor have failed. And then we also make the argument of, well, we want to be compared like UPS. So for 40 years, we've been making this argument during contracts, and we've never gotten any ground on it. But then you look at it, and they make the argument that Amazon makes 13.5% more starting than us. FedEx makes 5% more starting than us. So you've been battling this failed argument that isn't going anywhere. You haven't got an arbitrator to say, yes, UPS is the bench lane. Why aren't you even looking at the bottom and going, if you don't want to say UPS is the bench, what about Amazon down here being more than us? Why are you focusing the argument on this? For 40 years, I just don't get it. And back to the TA thing, they said the TA was acceptable agreement from both sides. That's the argument the post office used. If that's not saying, hey, look, we agree to this, it's the carriers that are being a pain in the ass. We're here to agree on something. We already agreed on this.
100%, 100%. And you know, James, I've got a lot to say about this later in the show, but that's exactly the point. They used our own negotiations against us. You
Eh,
know,
Insane. I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah, and you know what? It just shows like we'll get into the work rules, but if I don't know how many people after they saw the money part got to the last page, if they even printed out the actual decision, but oh, if the if they're not supposed to look at the TA, how does the work rule, all the work rules slide in there, right? Makes a mess. We talked about the Article 8 stuff with the list, and obviously there's more language I hope to come out on that.
and
But that's a concession, in my opinion. Now, if you're creating more overtime lists, the post office is saying, and we know they're shorthanded in places, the post office is saying we need more workers. We need people to come in on their day off. You can come in, only work 8 hours. That's a concession by the post office. What do we get for that concession? Was that the point three? That's ridiculous.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's as much a concession on the post office as it is a bad move for us. Because if you think about it, Greg, think about if we can work 14 or 16 hours a day when they need us once in a while. That's an extra person they don't have to hire.
Yep, you're right, 100%
So
right.
so and
so they can't hire people right now. So what they're trying to do is burn out the ones that they have. They don't care if we overheat. They don't care if we freeze. They don't care if we burn ourselves out. They're just trying to burn out the batteries because they know there's nothing to replace us.
and you're right, Paul. They discussed the retention that the post office uses in their argument of losing 60% on average of retention, and in somewhere 100% high expense areas. And they use the fact that the CCA work rules that we're touting as wins. We're touting the mentorship and this week 1 through week 8, and we'll go through those later. We're touting those as wins. The post office themselves goes, look, we couldn't give you high enough pay because of those CCA work rules. They said the work rules they use is an argument saying it's going to cost us more money on the other end of the carrier, so we can't give you guys a better raise.
But they can't keep people.
And they're going to break the rules anyways. Come
Right.
on.
Right.
Going into the mentorship program real quick, weeks 1 through 8, they can only work in their home office. Weeks 1 through 4, only 40 hours. 5 through 8, only 10-hour days, 56 a week. And 9 through 11, 11 and a half. It says they can only work in their own installation, no hubs. Does that mean Sundays they cannot go to hubs to do parcels? And they're using this argument of saying, hey, look, we gave you all these work rules for the CCAs, so we can't pay more. A kid coming in here who's not getting paid a lot probably isn't going to stay at 40 hours a week for the first 4 weeks. He wants to make some money, and you're paying him shit on top of it. And we all
Yeah.
know they're going to violate this. They're not going to say, hey, Greg, so your carrier worked 48 hours last week. I know he's within weeks 1 through 4. We have a do now, grieve later system. They're going to violate this, and we'll have to grieve it, and then there'll be punishments for it, and you're going to get those to expound, but it's never going to fix the problem.
Nope.
It is insane that's
And the CC, like, so they're gonna,
CCAs.
right? They're never gonna help the CCAs. They see them as they don't value them, right? You could just see it. Like if they really value them, they would set them up with uniforms the day they walk in there, and putting them out there and like where I work, is it terrible? No, but there's some bad parts of the state, and they're starting at 10 o'clock. Some of them, and they're doing a route. They're out there late, and in the winter it gets dark. They got them walking up there looking like they're just
Do you,
walking the street with their butt. And who knows? They walk up a driveway one day and something happens. There's no protection. If someone sees the letter carrier walking up the driveway, oh, it's my letter carrier,
do
right?
you know what
It's
we
a
got
kid in
though?
jeans. They don't care
So
about the CCAs.
it's part of the mentorship program. They during training they will receive a new reflective vest, a new satchel, and a new hat. That
Oh
is how much
boy.
we think of them. It's
Wow.
here's a
Yeah.
reflective vest. Do we
So
even
so
give
this
the
is this
post
is
office T-shirt anymore that we used to? So
no.
we're not even giving you a shirt. Here's a fucking vest so you don't get hit by a car and we don't get sued at some point.
So this is
That's our big
basically
thing.
this is basically lipstick on a pig. They know the CCA program is not working, so they're going to dress it up. They're going to do a little bit, but what they really should have done, what we should have done, was said, "Listen, it's not working because we need PTFs. We don't need the CCA program anymore."
They
But
use
instead, we said, "Okay, just make it a little bit better. You know, dress it up a little bit. Give them better rights. Give them." We should have threw it out. That should have been
going back to
the
what yes, going back to what Greg said, what you're saying is they mentioned analytic and robust data on the CCA class shows that this job pays more than their last job. Then why the fuck are they leaving in droves? They're all leaving to find better jobs. So okay, so you got them from Shaw's where they're making $9 an hour minimum wage and they found a job that pays them 19 and we're bragging about the fact that we're getting
yeah.
23-year-olds at a low cost who are coming out of fucking high school or college.
Yeah,
They're not going to
or we're
stay till
getting
they're
somebody
30 or 40.
we're getting somebody at out of McDonald's, right? And they're figuring out that shit. I was doing better with the free Big Mac for lunch than I am at the freaking CCA. So, so
It's insane. And another thing is, do we see this analyst and robust data? So did they actually present the data or did they just say, we have robust data that says they're happy with how much they get paid?
then
Because
why
I
is
don't
that? Why
see
is
it
it
in
They
leaving?
anything. I
they
don't
didn't
know if
they
we got
sent
that
yeah,
shit.
they sent a text out probably to 10 people, and 7 of them probably didn't know what it was, and they said, "Yeah, I'm happy," because they probably thought that someone would. It's like those surveys they sent out a couple years ago that had your employee ID at the top, but they said it was anonymous. They can't get
Yeah.
out of their own way sometimes. But, it's funny, my office in Framingham had CCAs forever, right? During COVID, we had 5 CCAs. These 5 were unbelievable. They're working 13 hours a day. They're not even worried about the 11 and a half hour because I wasn't going to stop them because they wanted to make money, right? And it's sad that they have to do that, but they would. But as soon as they went to PTFs, guess what happened? They were getting applications through the roof, and it's like, wow, maybe if you make them feel a part of the team, obviously the PTFs have to go through their 90 days, but you're a career employee. You actually have a path. You know, you 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 get obviously the CCAs get a uniform after 120 days, but you're a career. You get contributions to your thrift. You get to feel a part of the
The
team, and
background
that's
of it.
Yeah.
they had to show make it a PTF office. They started posting applications on Indeed for the first time ever. They were actually proactive with something, and now they got a million PTFs. They can't stop them from coming in. And imagine if you did that everywhere. You'd never have to worry about mail sitting on the floor overnight.
So
But
they
they
did,
refuse to
and the
be.
USPS mentions that as their argument. They say in 2021 to 2023, no applicants for the first quarter of any open positions. And then they explain that routes are being left behind, morale is low. They hit on these things with the CCAs, but at no point do they mention like how to get them. They didn't give them the pay. You didn't fix their morale. What did you do to fix the position? You didn't do anything to fix the position, and there was no real argument when we were told the stance that was going to be taken is no CCAs. Period.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've been
Yeah.
hearing that for 2 years. All career workforce. Well, we can't do it because of this. And just like we were hearing, oh, we're getting rid of table 2 for years, and then they get rid of table 1, and
What
everybody's in the same boat. These guys got to be so frustrated. I couldn't table 2. You see this TA, and you're like, what did I get out of it? What
when did
what
they decide that that was no longer their bargaining point? I believe we were told a week before they went into arbitration. Here's what we're going for: no CCAs. Everybody moves to tier 1. I go through the arbitration. I don't see that we argued that at all? Did we give up in moderation? Did we give up mediation? Did we give up at that point? Did we give up before we even walked in the building? When did we
There
give
should have
up
been
that argument?
there should have been no argument at all as far as the CCA position. We should have both been on the same page that it's not working. That should have been before we even sat at the table. We should have said, "Listen, post office, Doug Tolino, we both know that's not working. Let's get that out of the way right now before we sit in the chair." It's common sense. It's good for them and it's good for us that we have a full-time workforce.
Use it as a bargaining point on them.
Yeah, yeah.
They
I'll
just
tell.
know how to. They really know how to break morale because we were talking about this the other day. Like Paul, I don't know if you guys had a rally up there
Oh yeah,
or how
we
your
did. Yeah.
rallies. So look at that rally, and I had my members went, and they were great turnout in Boston. It was 30 degrees. Everybody just you know great job by everybody running it, and then you all pumped up about protecting your job, and what happens 20 hours later? You're at work, you work a hard day, and then you see this decision from the arbitrator, and that morale just went back down. It's like you take one step forward, take two steps back, and we have to somehow figure out how to keep positive momentum going as a union if we're because if we don't we see the division in the union, and at some point it's going to come to a breaking point. And you know, I see people online saying I'm going to get out. I would advocate not to get out because if you get out, you can't vote. And I tell my members, if you're not happy with the national representation, I hope you're happy with the local representation because I'll do, I'll sit on Zooms on Friday nights and Saturday nights for you guys just to get you guys informed. And I think that's the approach I wish, I give Brian credit for going on with James and Chris and John, but that's the approach that we need to show these younger people that there's actually presidents out there that will fight for you and will support you. And yeah, I don't know what you guys think about the reaction to the rally, or Barry, what you think about it.
So, I mean, one quick thing about that, you're right. I want to ask you guys, when did you guys learn that we reached an agreement that there was an
That's
arbitration decision? When did
that's
you
that's
find out?
hilarious. That's hilarious because it was after the rallies, and yet it was decided before the rallies. Isn't that a
Mm.
coincidence?
Yeah, so I find out at 5 o'clock on what the rally is the 23rd. I found out at 5 o'clock on the 24th. It's kind of slipped in. Nobody before anybody could talk about it in the office. Give us a whole night to digest it. But it's signed the
21st.
21st.
Right.
Why was that not released on the 21st? Nobody. It didn't even get out into the atmosphere of slipping out. One person said, hey, they have an agreement. Everybody was in the dark about it until the 24th. So that means, was it held between 4 or 5 people that said, hey, don't say nothing yet. The mob has a rule. You can't keep a secret with that many people knowing it.
That only leads me to believe that, and what we probably all think is that this was a stipulated award. There were some conditions made, and that was probably one of them. That we've got a rally coming up. I don't want this coming out until after the rally. Yeah.
Yeah, we
I
don't
would
want
hate
to
to
delve.
think
We don't
that.
want to
I
delve
would
into
hate to think
conspiracy
that, man.
conspiracy theories, but how it's too much of a coincidence. Like the guy dated it Friday, and it came out Monday, and we had the rallies on Sunday. Sometimes, you know,
Yeah,
some-
it sucks to think that. It burns you to
I hate
think
I
that,
hate to
man.
think that. I hate to think that, and I'll say, we see what's going on, and we don't know what's going to happen with the post office. And you know, I support. If Brian can successfully fend off anything with the administration coming after the post office, I'm all for it. I hope it works. But like with all this kind of like backroom deals, it leads the people that on those Facebook pages or Reddit sometimes they might have a point when it looks like there might have been a deal made. um I'd rather have them just come out and say, I made a deal. I Sue me, do what you got to do. I felt it was in everybody's best interest. I'd probably respect that more than something that I believe, like Paul said, was a stipulated decision, because the page 20 shows me it might have been. And how long did they meet? Like they met on Monday, they did the photo op.
17th, 18th,
We didn't
19th.
see anything posted on.
Two,
I'm
two
sure
and a
they
half.
met Tuesday.
I don't know how many of you guys have been to court. Usually, the way this shit works is you meet, you discuss, you sit in front of a judge. The judge takes it. They take their due time writing it up to make themselves sound as smart as they want, and then they send it out. So if we believe that, that means if it was done the 21st, that means that's the day they received it. Then what? The 20th, the judge had it and wrote it. So they only really could have met the 17th, 18th, maybe the 19th. 3 days. And
So
they
how
already
did,
said they weren't going to get full days, probably half days.
so how could you review all of that tentative agreement, all the work rules, everything, and decide that it was appropriate?
Doesn't seem like they did. It seems like it was just, hey, we agreed to this. Both sides agreed to it. We don't care what the membership said. They're complaining about pay, but everybody complains about pay. Just give them
Yeah.
a little bit of a bone and, oh, we'll fix, because they mentioned the uniform thing was an issue that they wanted to fix. By the way, it's a point that we were told the union would not argue because it doesn't benefit us to argue about uniforms. They gave us, what was it? First year is $4.99 to $5.36. After May 21st of 2026, it goes from $5.36 to $5.49. We gained what?
$80?
$80
Guys, that's
for
three
the
pairs of
uniform.
socks. You
Yeah,
get three
for the
pairs of socks
uniform.
now.
That they're going to argue as a point that they can't give us a bigger raise because, hey, look, we got to give you guys a uniform allowance that cuts into the raise we give you guys. Which again, we were told that's why we don't bargain on the uniform thing. But where it's just maddening.
I mean, to me, it looked like
Insane.
that was taken into consideration in the bargaining, was the uniform thing, which is
Yeah.
total. Anyways, guys, we all
And who cares about the uniforms? Half these people aren't in uniforms. I drive through other towns and I see people in t-shirts and the postal shorts and red sneakers.
They can't
Uh,
afford them.
They can't afford them exactly because they don't give them anything. There's not like if they really want to do something, then take over the union. I mean, take over the uniform as a union, or let the post office do it, like the army does it. But the fact that the uniform thing is like even is a negotiating point is embarrassing.
it's embarrassing.
We
Like
were told it wouldn't be. He had made it clear we're not going to use that as a negotiating point. It's a failed program. We're going to fix it. We're going to do this, do that. Nothing was ever done except they did exactly what they said they wouldn't do because they bargained for more money, explaining to us that they wouldn't bargain for more money because the more money they give us, the more the companies just go up. It was a failed point. So
Yeah.
we gave up money on the table towards raises to get more for a uniform allowance, knowing that the companies are just going to raise their prices when they find out we got a raise. We didn't fix the system.
Or if they really think that we're nothing more than door dashers, then just tell us to wear a pair of blue jeans and a blue sweatshirt and fucking do away with it. Right?
Yeah. I mean, what respect are we getting at this point on that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but think about the CCA mentorship thing, just a small thing that you would think that would be some like they would be told something, but so they get that credit card, right? And there's $600 on it. And they go to this like we have a store out in Shrewsbury where you go on one of the websites and they see that nice shiny Gore-Tex raincoat and they say, oh, I'm gonna spend $600 on this, go through my whole allotment. Nobody's there to tell them, hey, be smart about it. You want to be in uniform, buy 5 shirts, a pair of pants, and a pair of shorts. Don't worry about the Gore-Tex. But they don't even, it's like the small things that these younger, when I say younger, I mean post office younger, because they might be 50 years old, but nobody tells them unless you have a union president that is really involved in everything that goes on. And Paul's a president. He doesn't go to every office every day, obviously. So is there like, who from the management is telling these people the small things like that? And those are the things that really, you kind of set people up to fail.
And you're right. And that's a good segue into this NERP program and the new mentorship. I mean, they're touting an idea as a really great idea that we know the post office will find a way to screw up. So, one of the things, the bragging points is new employees will get the contact info of their supervisor, the date and time to report, the info to get into the building, specific dates with the OJI. Half those things we didn't have before. Half those rules were not rules before that you're going to know where you're going and the phone number to reach them. So we were just, hey, report to Attleboro, figure it out yourself. And we're touting that as a win because we didn't deal with it in the past. The OJI training, you know what? Finally, because it has been such a screwy thing when carriers get to a station of how many days you're with the OJI. OJI does this. Now it's a set thing that they can't play games with. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, you're with the OJI at all times. But what happens with the carrier that needs more than Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Are they going to change the rules, or is this going to stop them from saying, hey, look, John over here, he's not there yet. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday wasn't good. Let's send him back the OJI Thursday, Friday to really get him into it. There's no information on that.
Capone, I can tell you it's already the OJI thing, and I had an incident in my office. I was off on. It's funny. It seems to always happen when you're off, right, with the
Mhm.
supervisors. Guys at OJI's got. I don't. You guys don't know downtown Framingham. It's probably Latin to half the people listen, but it's like just a mix of everything. Perfect route to train on. So this trainer, this OJI's got this kid. The kid's asking a million questions. That's what you want. You want questions, right? They go 20 minutes over, right? Guy takes 20 minutes of overtime because he's taking the time to train this kid. What does the supervisor say to him? I need you to do it in 8 hours. He called me. I was home on my NS day, livid, sending out emails to uh, the business agent about what we're going to do about this when we meet with the district manager. I mean, that's what we see. Like, imagine the kid just needs 20 more minutes, and the supervisor gets on the OJI about it. That's
Craig,
why these programs fail.
it's
They're
in the
never going to
contract
succeed.
now. It says weeks 1 through 4 are only 40 hours a week, only 8 hours a day. And that includes the OJI days. So that means you're guaranteeing that carrier needs to get through his route in 8 hours with the trainee and no extra time to teach him because there's a good chance that route's taking him 8 hours anyways. He doesn't have the time to slow down to teach this guy, and you're setting it up to fail. Like, so when do you want him to learn? He's
Yeah.
We
just
just
So
going
got
to
to
where
learn it
did
carry.
through repetitive
We
motion.
just
what?
Yeah, we
Wait a
just got to
minute.
carry a discipline for stationary events because he was talking to a person he was OJTI training.
And that's the thing. We know these work rules. Again, I had said them. We're going to be grieving. There's a, you know that the carrier is going to be. What happens? They get their first day with the full route. They work 8.5 hours. So now we have to grieve the fact they went over 30 minutes because they're stuck to deadlock work rules in the first 4 weeks. Or they send them out with 5 hours and it takes them 8.5. So now we have to grieve that. It's insane. Now I like the idea of the tour with the union and the post office, and that's going to lead to a lot of interesting things. I think a lot of us see it where maybe the postmaster gets buddy with the CCA and says, "Hey, don't talk to the union. Like you're a rock star,
Mm.
you're a great carrier. Last thing we need is them getting you." We see it now where they go to your carrier and go, "You used to be great. I don't know who you've been listening to, the union. Uh, you know, can you start? You used to finish this route a lot faster. Yeah, but I wasn't doing it correctly. You know, the union got involved and they're teaching me the process because you guys didn't teach me the process, how to endorse mail, how to write it up, how to put it in forwards, how to do holds. Weren't taught. So the union got in. Now the post office is upset because this carrier went from months 1 through 8 just running, not doing the side things, to now 9 through their first 3 years. They're actually learning how to do the job, and it takes the time it's supposed to take. This mentorship, giving the CCAs the ability to say they don't want to be involved in it, it's fucking napalm. They're going to tell them, don't get the union rep, the mentor. It's a pain in the ass. Look, I'm your buddy. Work with me. Don't do that. It to give them the ability to get out of it. Brand new people who we see it every single day. Their boss tells them something, they'll do it because their boss always gives them the, "Hey, come on, buddy. I can get you hired. Oh, come on, buddy. Maybe if you do me this, I'll get you Sunday off next month." I was thinking about giving you a Sunday off. It's giving them more ability to do these things.
Yeah,
It's
how many
insane.
times do you hear? How many times do you hear that? Oh, I skipped. I skipped my lunch today. I was behind. I skipped my lunch. Well, don't skip your lunch. You know, um, you know, the CCAs. I think it's a part of educating them, and unfortunately, like we only have a set of eyes. We're not around, and someone needs to get to them. And I like that our union does go to the academy and sign them up for the union. I wish that, and I think we have a around here at least. I don't know if you guys have the same person in Dedham. They probably. Oh yeah, I know James. I know Greg. I know Barry. Good guy. Go see him or her first day, right? Obviously, it's a little tougher if you're in if you're in like one of these outskirt towns of Boston, but they got to know some sort of union person. Go talk to the union, know your rights, right? Don't take any shit from the supervisor. And I tell my CCA or my PTFs, they're gonna love you for the first 3.5 months. Then they're not your friend anymore. And I saw it today. Like the guy's like, "Oh, you got to get out of the office quick. You got to get out of the office quicker to this kid." And this kid's like, "But 3 months ago, you let me stay in here for 3.5 hours setting up this
Right,
route."
what have you done for me lately? I see it
Exactly.
now when they
Yeah.
make PTF. They treat them like butter when they're CCAs because they know they're getting them for cheap. They run them through the walls. The second the guys make PTF and they're like, wait a minute, I have a career, I have rights. They don't click as CCAs. Once they make that PTF title and they feel, like you said earlier, part of the family, then they start doing things correctly. And then the bosses are no longer their friends. And now it's, you're a pain in the ass. Oh, I don't like you. I'm going to start harassing you and bothering you every single day. And we're not reaching the CCAs before that happens. One of the things they did is the defined schedule the Wednesday before. So it can be adjusted at any point. Greg, you got Tuesday off. We're going to post the Wednesday before. Now, first off, what's the grievance if they don't post it on the Wednesday before? Is it the holiday situation? Which means what? Time and a half? But how do we decide what is time and a half?
There is no remedy built in.
There's no
Yeah.
remedy built in. So we have to make our own remedy in regards to that. Okay, so they do post it, but they can also change it. And who's to say they're just not going to put up some bullshit schedule and go, Greg, you're Wednesday, Paul, you're Tuesday. Oh, wait a minute. Tuesday, Paul, we can't give you it off. Wednesday, Greg, we can't give you off. Paul comes in Wednesday, or we call Paul 7 a.m. on Wednesday morning and say, don't come in at 10. We don't need you. It's just the same bullshit.
Yeah, we've got that going on now in our Portsmouth, New Hampshire office. They got a whiteboard, they got the schedule on there, and every day it's changed. They cross
Yeah.
out a name, they put a new name in. You might as well be on call. You have to check the day before.
And that's the stance we should have argued was the on-call situation. Make it so that if you call them the day of, I don't care if it's 7 a.m., 6 a.m., and they start at 10, that's on call. You're telling them not to come in. That is where we grieve it at that point. Instead of,
know,
well, you have to make the argument they're on their way. You affected somebody's schedule in one way, shape, or form.
I was thinking about this the other day, just a little off topic. No, not off topic, but I had a PTF. They called him to tell him not to come in, and they dialed the wrong number. They were off by one. So they owned up to it. They said, "Oh, we'll pay him. He came in. We don't need him. We'll pay him for 4 hours." I said, "Oh, that's good. That's honorable." But I was thinking when that happened, how many in the last 10 years, we'll say CCAs and PTFs that happened to where they showed up, said we don't need you, and they went home and they didn't get paid for it.
You didn't find
Imagine
out
the
about
amount
it.
because they didn't know, right?
Yeah,
They didn't know because
They
nobody
start at
told them.
9:30, 10. The union reps already out of the office loading
Yeah,
up.
they didn't know. It's the stuff like that that um hopefully we just informed 100 people maybe. Oh shit. I next time that happens to me when I show up and they say go home, if I'm a PTF, I'm getting paid for 4 hours,
or how about
you
this one,
know?
Greg? We had a PTF on Thursday who showed up at 9:45. They didn't have a vehicle. They said go sit in the break room, but don't clock in yet.
Jesus Christ.
Ugh.
So he clocks
And
in
they
at
don't
almost
know
11
these things.
o'clock. Almost 11 o'clock. He sat there for over an hour without pay.
And they don't know these things. And how often are the reps reaching out to them? You talk to these carriers, it's like, oh, I don't know what branch I'm in. Oh, okay.
I
How
was
long
just
you
gonna
been
say
in?
that.
I've been in for a year and a half. I've been in for 2 years.
I mean, guys, it's critical, especially with these OJIs. When these kids show up for their first day, they should be introduced to the branch offices and
Yep.
immediately informed. This is when we have our meetings. Get these kids here so they learn the stuff like this. That's the only.
I've never seen a group of younger carriers that are more involved and able to be mobilized than you see today because they're actually learning through all these little processes Facebook, Discord, all these little groups. You finally have a group that can be mobilized, and we're dropping the ball the day they walk in the building, not even getting them in front of the union, knowing their shit.
Capone, we see it every Sunday in we've done, I think it's 6 weeks straight. We've done a Zoom on Sundays with the organizers of the rally. We see the talent in that Zoom, like people that have been there a year that are more knowledgeable on what's going on and than most of the people that have been working it for 30 years. But that needs to grow like that. We need to get more groups like that, and you don't have to be associated with CLC or BFN. It should be one NALC that educates its members. And uh, you
Teach them the
Barry
ways.
and
Don't just
Barry, yeah,
burn them out.
exactly. Yeah,
Like,
Barry and Paul. We were at the rally on last Sunday, and we're all on the bandstand, and we're all running around. And comes up to me, and he whispers in my ear. He goes, "Two guys down there. I gave shirts." I said, "Hey, what branch are you guys from?" We're not going to mention the branch, but they didn't even know what branch they were from. Capone had to tell him when he said the town, and I was like, "Holy, like that's education. Like, how do you not? If my members didn't know the branch, and maybe it's on them. Maybe they don't care to get involved, but someone should have told them. You took the effort to come to the rally, know why you're there and where you're from,
it's
and
slapping the paw away from the pup. I mean, you got these kids and these guys, these people that want to be involved and they're able to be involved. And instead of teaching them the ways and saying, all right, calm down. I know you're a little overexcited. I know you want to do this. If you want to do this, this is how it has to be done. And I know Paul's going to go through a resolution later, but guys got to learn the process to affect the change that they want to see. And there's this lack of teaching the process to the younger groups, and it's never learning the process. So then they look like pains of the asses when they come up there and they start screaming, "We want this, we want that," because that's not the process. But you didn't teach them the process. You asked them to play chess without telling them what each single piece meant, and then got mad when they moved one of the pieces wrong.
yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
And I think it's almost like, not to segue, but we were talking before we hit record about Barry's situation. And I think Barry's story, I think that can relate. And I know I got people in my office that started around the same time, but I think Barry's story of how he started, what happened to him in his journey in the post office is something relatable. Like the three of us, we started, Capone and I started 2003, 2004. Paul started before that. We've been on that top pay chart, the table one. We're at step P. We're doing okay, but I think Barry's story is relatable to a lot of the people that are probably listening. So um, I don't know if Barry wants to
Yeah.
talk about
We're not going to
what.
mention Paul's year that he started though, because that was, it
Well,
was a
I'll
long,
give you
long
I'll give
time
you a
ago.
hint. I'll give you a hint. The car I bought was an '87 Sunbird convertible. Okay.
I was born in '82, Paul.
All
Just to
right.
give you a little bit of.
I
There
could
you
have put you
go.
in the car seat and drove you around then.
I
But
can
yeah, no,
I can
Barry's
put
story's
that.
got a lot because I think CCAs need to understand that we need to be fighting for them, and we've seen this battle before in regards to TEs and understanding that they aren't alone in this. We have all been that, and we've all fought some of these battles, and a lot of them were shoved upon us, as in the 2011 DOS Award. Barry, do you want to give these guys a little bit of an understanding of where you were at and what happened in regards to that?
I jump on these things now, and these young kids putting up the fight, which is fantastic. All right, but there is hope. All right, as long as you push and go forth, good things will happen. You can't give up right away. I hear so many people, I just want to leave, quit here, and go work somewhere else, and this and that. But the best thing about this job right now, no matter how tough it is a job where you can come in and get paid. Yeah, granted, that's the main reason why we turned this thing down is because we all feel we deserve more money. I mean, shit, when I first started here in 2007, 2008, I was hired as a transitional. All right. I was getting paid $18 an hour to start. No benefits, nothing in the contract that I was allowed to do. I would just I think the only benefit I got at the time was I accrued annual time, and I saved that annual time for my separation. You took a 5-day separation in that non-career position at that time. Same job, same things. I had no rights pertaining to the contract. For example, I couldn't put bids down. Um, so on, like all the benefits that CCAs have today, I feel I was used as a guinea pig to obtain what it is today. Okay. But going back then is every year at separation, I received a dollar. What was it, like $1.12 raise every year? So from 2007 to 2008 is when I started. I think I passed my 90 days in March of 2008. But anyways, I worked my way up through that contract, and then in the DOS contract in 2011, um, they eliminated the transitional position, which when I told you guys earlier on that I was butthurt is, I was a union paying member right out of the gate, paying my dues and this and that, and I thought I was going to be protected by Article 6 and Article 5 pertaining to prohibition and unilateral actions for employees, but when it came to my position, the non-career, the Postal Service, and Paul, if you could tell me, I really don't know the main of, I asked you earlier before we started recording as to was that the union's idea or the Postal Service's idea to get rid of that position? If you could tell me that now.
Yes. So I think it was originally something that the union saw that was going to happen. I think if I remember correctly, the clerk union had already done it and we saw the writing on the wall. So the union kind of short circuited the decision by offering the CCA position, but we offered it with a couple of caveats, with a pathway to, I'd like to say citizenship, but with a
That
pathway
benefited the
to a
post
career
office.
job. Yeah, with
Well,
a
Don't
pathway to a
forget that
career
benefits the
job.
post office to keep
Paul,
those guys moving on.
when
Yeah.
you say
So-
pathway, and I'm going to jump in right here, is the pathway is great, but they totally ignored. Like at the time I took that cut, I was in my 5th year, so I fell under the 6-year mark of not maintaining wage and shit like that, which really hurt. And in that following contract, I had to wait an additional as a CCA. I took I think I was over $23 an hour, and
You took a $6 pay cut.
I was like, it knocked me. I was like 23 something because I got the $1.12 every year. So they knocked me down to $16.25 with no notice. It was the same job. They eliminated that hourly pay from me. And I lost many friends. They walked out the door, they left because it was bullshit. And
Yeah.
I hear guys, I'm going to drop out. It crossed my mind. Why am I paying dues when I got fucked in the ass? You know what I mean? It hurts. That's a big cut for doing a job where you work 5 years, you work your way up, and you hope for a pathway. But
Who
the
fought for the TEs in that? That's a
Yeah.
good point of who you were paying dues. Who was the one in the room going, yeah, but these guys are losing a shit ton of pay, and that's not fair to them. And if I
You think
remember,
about
I
this.
was in at that time. This wasn't something that was discussed that may happen. It was just,
it was.
here's the
It ha-
decision.
it
By the
just
way,
it just
F you.
happened. Here's the decision, right? Yeah.
I mean,
So
they didn't even
go ahead.
abide 90-day time frame to notify members of what was happening. It was like I showed up to work right after that contract. It was like, you got to go over here and take a
You got to
test.
take an exam for a job you've been doing for
I
5
had
years to
Yeah,
be in the
that's the
same
awesome
condition
part.
as somebody who'd never done the fucking job.
guys to get the
Yeah.
training job. I actually took the postal exam. Okay. And then when they pulled this shit on me, I showed up at this place and I was like, you know something? Fuck this. I just pressed A, B. I didn't even look at the questions. And they said, Mr. Glines, you're all set because they knew they fucked me. In my opinion, they porked me. It was a bunch of bullshit. But then again, too, is pertaining to the 6-year mark, I was right there. So why didn't they implement that in that contract where, okay, he's going to take this, but we're going to make it up to him when he reaches 6 years of service? That was thrown out the window. I had to wait at that pay cut in 2011 until the 2016 one, but they created the conversion from
The
guys
2 years.
like me
Yeah.
took that. They made it all okay. So we're going to do the right thing now. You're doing it now, but why didn't you try to protect that?
Guys that have been here for that long, already paying dues, as you said, for 5 years. Where was any protection for those guys? So you went how many years from when you started as a TE until you made regular from being a CCA? Was that 7 years?
7
8 years?
7 years with no reward.
So you have a carrier for 7 years who's now lost $6 or something an hour.
$6 an
That's
hour,
doing the job, that's staying there, that got no protection,
no
that had
protection.
to wait 7 years to actually get something.
And then when they made it up with the conversion in the 2014, as I think I got converted, they brought me back after all those years to where I was at pretty much on the grade. $23 and something cents is where they started me at that step. I forget what step it was where they put that in, but they pretty much brought me back after
To
all those.
where you were when you were a TE, when you finally made regular.
Where
Insane. And
insane.
what's
But
that
Barry,
$16 in 2011
So
worth today? It's got to
it,
be worth what, 21, 22? We lost money in the CCA class in buying power
and I'm going to
since that
jump
2011 decision.
is we could get into all this TA, but I'm going to make it pretty simple. Is where the TE position is now. Okay, so I've been doing letter carrier for over 18 years, and I just reached top step probably 6, 7 months, maybe a year ago. Okay, so it took me going through all this bullshit almost 18 years to reach that P, which is asinine. Okay, 18 years of my life to get to a decent pay.
That's not even really decent. Let's speak the bare truth. Not decent in a lot of these areas. It's still
It,
struggling.
it's not decent, but when you reach up there, like Greg was saying, we have so many deductions in our paycheck that you're really not getting anywhere. And whole with this pay scale and all this shit, you have the starting pay now at $19.33 for CCAs. Okay, back when that position was created, it was $16.25. So for almost 15 years, that position has only gone up just over $3 starting an hour.
And you mentioned the benefits, and you got a key point. I keep arguing. The post office argued it. The union argued it. We've heard it in rap sessions. We make the private sector jealous with our benefits.
Bullshit.
How
So
many people do you talk to in the private sector? Because I'll tell you, the ones that I talk to laugh at what we get.
for example, I don't know the precise, but from what I recall, UPS is pretty much paying nothing for their health care. In my opinion, if that union is getting that, why can't our union do the same thing for our carriers? Why cannot we get the same health care?
Yeah, and we're playing from behind.
yeah,
We just got pregnancy as a protected class. Pregnancy in 2025 is now protected class. Finally, when private corporations have had that for 20 fucking years ago.
I mean, I don't see
but
the bargaining.
they'll argue, Barry. They'll argue about UPS. They'll argue, and it's a bad argument. Well, there's not as many of them as there are of you guys. Well, like that's the same argument as oh, it's always taking this long. Try harder. You get us $1,000 raise, but my health insurance went up $1,200 a year. So it's like you're never, like I said, you're
It,
never gaining. You're never gaining. But Barry, I want you to repeat something because I want people to understand this. So you were a TE. You're working. You know the job. You're probably to the point where you're good at the job. This whole thing happens, and you have to basically reapply and take a test again. And thank God that you had somebody that probably knew you and got you in there.
yeah.
But imagine that backwards thinking where here's a guy,
And
we
let me
don't have
tell
to train him. Go ahead.
I went through the actual postal exam, the tough one, to get the transitional job. And this test that they presented to me was like a 10-question test. If it felt insulting to
Yeah.
somebody that went
Been
in.
there for 5 years and been doing it.
I mean, for me to even get that transitional job, it wasn't easy. All right, it wasn't easy for me, and to get that and feel like a piece of shit by whatever happened. I mean, I have the mentality: if I'm a union member and I'm paying dues, I don't care what happens. You got to at least put up a better fight than that. All right.
And that relates back to what the CCAs are going through right now.
I mean, these poor CCAs now. I mean, after a year of service in this, they get a 1% increase on top of the what is it the
One, so they get 2.3, 2.4, 2.5, 50 cents an hour
yeah.
on top of it, and
But even at
no
that,
colas.
all right, I'm going to use example.
No cola.
After a year of service, these poor CCAs, you know what their pay increase is after a year
What?
at that 2.3%, 44 cents an hour,
Gee.
44 fucking cents.
The
Okay,
McDonald's down the street, I think, is hiring at almost $20 an hour. I read a thing that Costco employees are hiring at $30 an hour, and they reach top scale, which is $83,000 a year in 3 years. It takes us 15 years to hit 81.
you know, I push forth in this fight because I don't want to see what happened to me happen to anyone else. Okay, I stayed with it because I love being a fucking mailman. All right, I love it. I love the people. I love the people I work with. All right, and it was a goal of mine to set out. And I said, I'm not going to let this shit kill me. I'm gonna get it. And I ended up getting it. And it took me 18 years, but
And that's a
Yeah,
key
but I
thing
think that
is the pride. Like letter carriers have a pride. They have a pride in delivering the mail. They have a pride of doing the job. But we keep taking one on the goddamn chin.
we're losing. We're
Uh,
losing.
we are always the blame. Oh, the post office is losing money. Get the carriers on stationary events. We are
The
the
post
hardest working class in the post office.
Yeah.
There's a reason
there,
why we scheduled a whole argument on harder work, higher pay.
And the
But all
post
of a
office
sudden, we're
is
losing to everybody else and taking the blame for all the failures in the post office, focusing all this stuff on carriers, stationary events, your scanner, everything we do
The
is focused on
seatbelt, the
us.
seatbelts.
And then we're not also not getting the pay either.
I mean, the
Yeah.
post office is jumping all over that CCA position, and they have been ever since it was implemented in that contract, which is a long time ago to me. All right, they using that thing to take away overtime, take away benefits. All right, they don't care. Okay, so say this person does make it. All right, okay, 2 years they get converted. All right, but regardless, the time frame on this pay for this job over that amount of time with a 44 $19.33 from 1625 in 2011. Are you shitting me? Are you shitting me?
James, when you just brought this up, I had a picture in my mind. I'm not sure if it's one for this podcast, but I think of us as the cow, and
Mhm.
all these freaking people in the post office are a bunch of farmers trying to live off of us, the one cow, and they've milked us and milked us and milked us for all that
Boom.
we have, and now
Boom.
they're squeezing blood out of us, and they're still not happy.
Yeah.
There's nothing left. There's nothing
The,
left
the,
to take.
the bosses do less and less. There's more and more of them. We went from one boss for every 27 to one per every 7. And now we're getting these bones of deals. The one plus we got in the CCA is the 30, 60, 80 review is given to the union, and the union will now be there in sense of removals. That's great. But it also gave them the ability to not have your union rep there if you decide not to as a CCA and they're removing you. How many times have we heard, "Hey, what happened to so and so?" "Oh no, the post office said you should sign a removal letter, agree to be removed so you can apply again at a later date." And you're sitting there going, "Well, this was a bullshit thing. This kid shouldn't be going for that." No, 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 no. You tell me they're not going to go to a CCA and go, "Hey, Greg, look, you're doing all right, but you had this little incident. Tell them you don't want the union in there. Sign this paper saying you resigned, and we could probably get you back in a couple of months. And then when we get you back, we're going to treat you like we're the best guy in the world. Greg, I saved you that time. I made sure that you were okay. So make sure you run this split, and maybe I'll give you Sunday off."
no, but think about this. They do this thing with the CCAs where hey, oh, you're in your 90-day probationary period. Don't get in an accident, and then it's like a catch 22 where they're like, well, we can't get rid of them. Our bosses won't let us get rid of them. So hopefully we'll get them to resign. And then someone will whisper in their ear, oh, go down the street to the other post office in a week and reapply. That is the worst way to run a business. And this is to the point, not to go back to the TA, but you wonder why you lose money, right? It's bad management is why you lose money. But, you guys are talking about like what Barry was talking about is, and I hope people really listen to that. And like he stuck with it. I'm sure there was times he wanted to quit, but he likes the job. And I think a lot of us like, and I hope a lot of people when they, they might have a route that's a little tough, but I really hope they're out there and they like the job because they are the face of the post office. And when the post office does run a commercial, it's not some supervisor answering the phone or a
Dust.
supervisor giving a PD. It's a somebody out in the rain or the snow in full uniform with a big smile on their face, making someone's day. Right?
Ask the
They,
American public what they think. They think of an
it,
LLB climbing up a fucking hill with that engine in
yeah,
the
right.
middle of the rain with our rain jacket soaked delivering their mail. That's what they think of when they think of the post office, the hard work we do. Yep.
When they're worried about stationary, time, and that's like the flavor of the month. And I'm sure people listening, oh yeah, we got that stand up about stationary, blah blah blah. But I said to my boss today, I go, I've been on my roof for a couple years. I'm friendly with all the people. If a 90-year-old woman is wants me to bring her trash barrels up, I'm gonna bring her trash barrels up. Or if she's leaving to go to the retirement home, I'm gonna sit there and talk to her for 9
That
minutes.
was the
And I
service that kept people using
that
us.
that's why, and I say this is what we have to do is you want to get people, and why they shouldn't have CCAs, you want to get people to want to do the job because they become the face of the post office. They give great service. They that will enable the public to use us even more because they do a poor job of informing the public. When the post office goes away, you're going to be paying a lot more. How many times have you heard that
Mm.
in in
But how much
any
does the public
anything?
get that?
The
And you're
public does.
100% right.
Where's
And
the
there's
commercial? Where is my? I want a commercial. I forget who said it in your podcast last week. In that the long one, someone said, "Where's the commercial? Spend the money, have a commercial, show the public this is what we do every day." It's really become a sad state of affairs because turned into like a really just like a us versus them mentality, and you're just gonna keep losing people and people, and
You're
it's getting
100% right
depressing.
about the service. So they also do the customer connect. It's a great
Oh,
program in theory. But you want me to build relationships to get my customers to trust me, but you also don't want me to talk to them because of the time it takes. But make sure this is the future, the customer connect. We need this business. Then let me talk to my customers. Let me build the business. My customer knows me more than the UPS driver, more than the Amazon driver. There's a different one every week. They trust Capone. They know me. Give me a chance to
Capone,
build a rapport to bring the business to you.
Capone. I'm sure you guys all the Natick Mall, so another landmark. Something half the people listening won't get, but it's a big mall in Natick, Massachusetts. And we do pickups around the holidays. We do pickups year round, but around the holidays, it's heavier and heavier and heavier. I'm doing it with another carrier this winter, and I see the FedEx and UPS guy wheeling out more than us. So I said to my supervisor that night, I said, anybody ever go down there and say, "Oh, we're cheaper. Here's a cut." Get a supervisor in his nice suit or her nice suit, and get a carrier, clean shaven, full uniform, and have the two of them go
No,
down there
waste of time.
with
They
the
don't want to pay
scanner and
the time
say,
for it.
"Let's drum up some business." But they don't want to do that. They just want to take the loss. We only can pay you seven. We only can give you 1.3, 1.4, 1.5 because nobody's using us. But there's never anybody, and the carriers would do it. I know the carriers
Listen,
would get out there and with the customer connect with the scanner and sign these people up.
if you really want to do it, then that's how you do it. Not these stupid safety teams that are going out there. The problem
Ugh.
they don't do it is because they can't explain to their bosses, hey, Greg gave off 4 hours today to go do a customer connect. I had him walk around the mall to drum up business. There's no position like that to have your local carrier do it because they want to do the safety teams. They're concerned about that, not drumming up the
Yeah,
business.
they'd rather catch you without your seatbelt on than make $1 million. And
And
that's
Greg, you're right about this. And this brings up another point that I have in regards to the CCAs. The new retention program says that they'll have new route books with reasonable time knowing it and be able to converse with their fellow employee who knows the route. Great in process. However, you're holding these bosses to these office times higher up and saying, hey, get them out in an hour. You think that the boss is going to be happy that I go over to Greg and ask him for 10, 15 minutes? How does this route work? And you explain it to me. Hey, break it up. Get back to your routes. We need this done. On top of it, the mentoring program says that you can call your mentor or go and speak to him during the day. Does that have to be pre approved? Are they going to be like, hey, Greg, you went over 15 minutes? Yeah, no. Paul called me. He had some
yeah.
questions. I stopped because I'm not supposed to use my phone. I have to stop. Answered his questions, which gave me 15 minutes. Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you, Greg. I accept that answer.
They know this stuff is crap. They know it's not going to happen. It's not the word. It's just words written on a piece of paper that they felt like they had to put down.
So we're going to have to
And
grieve left, right, and center if we can figure out how to
right.
fuck to grieve it.
But I just want to tell the people listening that probably, they're not they're not a steward, they're not a president, they're not a vice president. But one of the things where we heard about the post office losses was they lose money in Article 8, which is overtime, right? So much money in Article 8. And how they could fix that? All they have to do is follow the contract. They
And
get
not
the
have
same
two lists.
not have two lists. They get the same contract. They read the same thing we read. They lose money because one side knows how to file a grievance, the other side doesn't know how to follow a contract. They would save. They lose. Let's say they lost $100 million in Article 8. Does anybody ever say, why don't you guys just follow the contract? Well, we can't. We don't have. But there's ways to do it.
Hold the
There's
bosses
ways to do it.
accountable. How about
They're
that?
not
Like when
held.
a boss
They're
violates and has all these grievances a year and they're losing thousands for the post office, they don't get that higher position that they want. They don't get the pay for performance review they want. You cost us $10,000 in violations in the contract. You're not getting shit. But no, we
they
benefit
are paid.
them for doing it.
Right. They are paid to manage, and they do a better job of mismanaging. And for some reason, that's our fault.
And we
Right.
take a hit on the chin again.
We
Now
take
it's
it.
don't
We
file
take
the
a hit,
grievances.
and that needs to be sung from the mountains. Why would we take a hit on that? Because it was at the rap session. It was up there with the civil service, the prepaid, but also Article 8 violations. Problem
They
solved.
use
Stop violating the contract.
Yeah, they're using the argument of saying, hey, the pie is this big, the pie's smaller because all these grievances that we are violating that you should take the hit for because we're violating it and we have to pay you guys out so much. There's not much there. Okay, so what are you doing to fix that problem so we don't have to deal with it again next contract?
Nothing.
And kind of the Article 8 changes in the contract are going to eliminate a lot of those grievance settlements, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I
it's
mean,
going to
we're waiting.
set 2.5% for anybody that goes over the 12-hour. So we don't have the ability to grieve, but that means we also can't add on to that grievance when they force it. I know they're saying that it's, you don't have to do over 12, but again, we know these guys, they know how to violate it. Who's to say they're not going to say to a young guy like Greg who's starting out, look, don't worry about it. You just
Right.
do it. Just you want to be in my butt, just do it. Or teach them
Yeah.
their right to do it. Say no to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not even that. It's like the little things that snuck through. We're jumping around, but the little things like you know, the hour office time was never a thing until TRAP, right? Well, it's just in TRAP, but how many offices got to talk? Well, we need you out of here in an hour. Well, where did that come from?
The bosses
Well,
use it as a metric.
but so what is the next thing they're going to use is, and the bosses are always like 2 weeks behind or 3 weeks, probably more. But you think they're not going to see that fixed office time and take advantage of that? Of course they are. And I know
Your
Brian,
union agreed to it.
right,
That's our
your
favorite
union
line. Your
agreed to it.
union agreed.
I know Brian and I would disagree on that, but if you're on the floor and the president's not around or Stewart's not around, they're going to say, "Well, I just read in your national agreement that your fixed office time is down to this." They're going to take advantage of people with it, and that's what shouldn't happen.
And when
The,
they get
un-
it
the
a little
union
bit,
agreed.
they start getting it bigger and bigger until it just becomes a thing that is all around because, hey, now my boss is saying we have to try to do me a favor, get me off the lists. I'll stay off your back. And then it just becomes the way it is.
Yeah. I guarantee you 47 minutes is the next thing for office time because we lost 13
Absolutely.
minutes. Yeah.
By the way, speaking of that, so they mentioned because mail volume's down. The union makes the argument that 32 billion this year came from parcels. 25 billion came from first class letters. So we've always been told the letter service is completely down. 25 billion, almost just as much as we made on parcels, just on first class letters. What about the third class? What about the magazines? What about the circulars? So you're meaning to tell me that the letter mail and all that is making just as much as the parcel service, but we've been led to believe let's don't give any attention to letters and stuff like that, and let's give attention to the parcels.
Yeah.
Where's
Yeah.
the interest in regards to that?
Well, and we're cutting service standards too. So how can we possibly sell a product that we're not even selling efficiently anymore?
Mm.
Yeah, they punted on that today. Or tomorrow starts that, and it's so now service is getting worse. They're almost giving people a reason to come after us instead of trying to stay competitive. Um, how many times have you guys heard, "Oh, there's no mail today." Well, as long as I have mail, and I've said I don't care if it's one letter or 15 letters, I'm still going to the house, right?
Mm.
And they love to use that. Well, there's no mail. I'm still out there doing my job. This until you change the structure of this route, or whatever the next, if it's inspections or if it's a JRAB, TRAP, tire wrap, whatever. We're still out there doing our job, and we're going to do it safely. And I just wish there was more of a pushback on stuff like that, and this again, this
Protecting the
TA is
service and the
protecting
standards
the
we have
service, yeah.
for us. It's insane, and they're like Paul said, they're going to push 47. They're going to try to push it in offices. They're going to try to scare people into it. They're going to tell us you want your street time more than your office time. No, I want the time it takes to do my job correctly. I don't care what the street number, office number is. What matters is what I need to do my job correctly. I don't want to just throw holds where they go and not concern. No, I want to make sure my route is being done professionally for my customers. My holds done nicely. My mail endorsed correctly so it gets to the system, so it gets to where it's going. I want my stuff organized, and that takes time to do it properly. And we seem to be throwing it out on this idea of just get in, throw it in the rack, pull it down, throw it in your truck, and get the fuck out there. Break the geo fence.
Yeah, pretty soon it's going to be just throw the letters, just grab your letters, grab your flats. It goes when it goes, and just do it in your truck. Like that will
I
happen
don't know if you
eventually.
guys remember when FSS came in, we were told that you were going to only have 5 minutes office time. They were convinced that FSS was going to be
Oh yeah,
the greatest thing in the world. It's going to do 100%, even though they were only told it was going to do 60%. They believed 100%. And we were told you would back your truck up to the dock, get into your office time, be in there for 5 minutes to pull your cart over and put your mail in the truck and get out. It's going to be all organized for you. There's going to be no office time. We all knew that was insane then, but somehow we're slowly accepting them chipping it down to that. Now what? We're not checking our vehicles anymore. We're not doing our whole mail. We're not doing our forges. Are we not allowed to pee when we're in the office? You're not allowed to ask your boss a question. All these things are going to take time. I'm not going to be out in 47 minutes.
no, that's when it comes to just teaching people their rights. Like I
Yeah.
know there's different locals with, some people have smoke breaks, stuff like that, but uh, people need to get educated, and obviously there's so many ways to do it now with there's so many post office podcasts, and I personally think it's great. Um, but there's also like talk to your veteran carriers, talk to your union. People really need to start getting educated and involved because they love a dumbed down workforce. They really do. I've seen it over the years. They love the person that just shows up, half-asses it. They don't care if it's 100% because you know that maybe that person will run for me and stuff like that. I think the approach we're trying to take here and in the future is just to get people educated and just more involved in understanding what your rights are and what the rules are. How many people know what a JCAM is? How many people know what the M39 is? How many supervisors even read the M39, right? You talk to somebody about the Elm, they look at you like, "What did you just say?" Just read. My advice is just start reading anything. Go on the NALC website and just read the resources page.
And where are we as a union teaching that? Greg, you have 100% right. Look, I remember being told by my first two union reps, Bobby DeMont and Frank Medico, how can you tell when a boss is lying? I'm sure we've all heard this joke when their mouth is moving. They are going to violate. No, they're not reading the M39. And they will tell you straight up rules that they know aren't real, that it's there. Or, no, that's not what it, no, does it say that? Oh, wow, I'm sorry. Where are we teaching our members? In my branch, we host a class, and it was one of our big achievements was we're going to host a monthly class because we saw a breakdown in these CCAs where they get this 3 days with the OJI, and it's so much information, and then they're thrown to the wolves. So let's get them in, and let's teach a monthly class and go from the second you punch in using the M41 till you hit the street, out on the street, and when you get back, and break it down and start throwing forms at them. We're going to start doing something in my branch where we have like a jigsaw puzzle in our newsletter, which again, my branch didn't even have a newsletter up to 2 years ago. We started it to get the information. We have fought hard, and Greg, I'm sure you're in the same position, forced to get that information out. My branch, as Barry had mentioned, was in a very dangerous angle of losing members, and it was kind of just taken as a we hang out and we have beers.
Mm.
Nobody was learning. And we started teaching and you saw these people gravitate towards it and learning and learning and wanting to learn. Why isn't the NALC doing something like that? Why isn't there a video series to teach the carriers? You have that podcast, but is that going into work rules and education? There's no
No.
education and no education being pushed down the ladder from regional to branch presidents to their carriers. It's just kind of come to a meeting and we're going to talk about Article 8 and Article 12 and Constitution 10, and they don't understand what you mean,
Yeah.
and they feel
They
intimidated to get involved.
and they have so many tools to do this with that members only portion of the or part of the website. Um, you know, to the people listening to the carriers out there, um, when you go to a union meeting, Capone just said, it shouldn't be just like people just hanging out drinking. Your presidents should look exhausted after the meeting, right? It should be. I'm telling you, my last one, 2.5 hours. We had nominations. We had to get through nomination. I I don't want to promote drinking, but I never needed a drink so bad after that. I
I
ran
look
down to
like
the bar and
James
said,
Brown walking off the stage. I have Barry
"Yeah,
putting the robe on me. No, no,
you
I'll have
should
one
be
more.
you should be exhausted because you're union presidents, and I'm not bashing any president, but they should be up there educating you and telling you everything you need to know, flooding you with information. And I think we're trying to push national to do that. Some regions have trainings, which is great. They let the president send people. We would love more of that. We want everybody to
For the
get
rank and file.
for the rank and file. It should really it should come from national. If
And you,
imagine if everybody knew the JCAM back to front, right, or front to back.
Or even a
Um,
couple of articles. How many guys know a
article
couple of articles? I
Start
get
with
in my
Article 8.
newsletter,
Read
we break
Article
it
8.
down because guys don't know what
Is
1 is, 8 is, even the main ones or anything.
yeah, I know I brought this up with you before, James, but the Kim region, Kentucky, in Indiana, Minnesota, is that it?
Mhm.
Up north there, they do a steward college where they will travel around a region and they'll just go into a branch office like your branch office and they will teach people. So
Make
what
that a
is so hard?
national thing.
Yeah, it should be
Branch
everywhere.
education.
Because we can't all afford to send people to formal aid training that's going to cost $4,000 or $5,000 for our members. The small branches can't afford that.
That's the
You
other
know.
thing. Yeah, you're right. To even get when you're getting these mid-level guys that are learning the process, they get stuck at this area because they can't go, or have to pay their own way. I hear guys that their branches won't pay them, so they pay their own way. And that shows dedication. The NELC should be reaching for these guys because they're the future. They're the ones that can make that grievance that hits a national stage and maybe affects change and keep this going for another 50 fucking years.
Capone, we know a guy. We may or may not have been talking to him 2 hours ago. We know a guy that paid his own way to Formal A and beyond training. I would love, what a good gesture would be. The national finds out about that and says, "What do we owe you? We're gonna pay for that."
Your
Good
This
future.
luck.
kid, exactly. Good luck. But I want that to get out there because when I heard that, we'll say, this person just dropped it in the middle of a conversation. I said, "Say that again," and I said, "I get it. Maybe they got voted, but nobody should have to pay their own way to go to leadership or formally and beyond." And there's all like I get it.
It can be
Regional
held
can't do
virtually.
right. Regional can't do it in person for 7,000 people. I get it. And every training I've been in regional, if it's Kenny or Jerry teaching it, it's been great.
That's
But
great.
I can't bring 75 people that day. So give them the ability to go on the website and like literally take a virtual class. It's not that hard.
We
It's not
have
that hard.
colleges. We have
Zooms.
online colleges. Why can't we have an
Yeah.
NELC college where there's actually courses that you can attend on your free time to move your way up? That you sign in on your employee
Yeah.
identification number so they know who the hell you are to go into the user portal and attend virtual classes to move your way up and learn this shit. Because you're right, some people can't go. What if they got kids at home? How many reps are
Um,
you losing that have the ability to be really great fucking reps and move up in this thing?
And if they're worried about management seeing it, well, maybe it's a
They
good
know
thing that they
everything,
might see it.
man.
They know, right? Like, don't worry. Like, it's like the convention. Well, we don't want anybody else to see it, or it's like open bargaining. We don't want anybody else to know. What is it? Everybody can know.
We
Put it
got
all on the
stabbed.
table. We're
You,
not.
you,
Yeah.
yeah, how many guys were union? Hell, some of them I've heard were union reps and then turned around and became management side. You don't think that they're going with the information they got? You think
Yep.
these CCAs aren't repeating what they hear in meetings because the boss is playing buddy with them and kind of getting them to say it? We got holes in the ship.
Mm,
This big of a ship, you're gonna have holes in it. Don't focus on that. Focus on training it. Who cares if they know what we know? We'll do it better. We'll train us better because they can barely read the M39. They're not going to attend one of our training classes to learn how we're going to fight a grievance. They're the laziest SOBs I've ever met in my life.
if there's any wannabe or up and coming stewards out there, my one of the funnier things I can tell you to do is any PDI, walk in with the M39 on I have it in a nice black folder with the M39 written on it. Walk in there and just open it to section 115 and just have it highlighted and see if the supervisor even knows what you're reading there, or read it to him or her and see what they know what it is, because it is a good hey, do you guys even read this? It's a good little maneuver to show them that I'm reading your manual. I'm reading manager's manual. Did you read it? Because this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be corrective over punitive. You're supposed to act like the boss, and it's that's what
Eh,
the training doesn't have to be all like by the book. You can show them little maneuvers to do in PDIs because everybody's got their own little maneuver. I'm sure.
So, Greg, to segue here in the
Yep.
what they're supposed to do, let's talk about the multiple overtime lists because, as we know, what they're supposed to do is keep it equitable, and they already have a fucked hard time to do it. Then, how are they going to do it with multiple lists, and we also lose the 10-hour preference? I know you got a few things on this.
So this is why I think this is the first reason why or not reason, we wanted Paul on, because I think Paul can probably explain this better. But I run into a scenario which I've run by James and a couple other people, and I know the language isn't out yet for the 10-12. So I guess we're gonna have to wait and see. But Paul, I got fixed days off, right?
Yep.
So I'm a Monday, but I sign up for the 8 hours only NS. You're a Tuesday, you sign up for the same list. They might need the Monday people more, so they continue to call me in. You don't get called in as much, so at the end of the quarter, I have 88 hours and you have 16. Brian has said that is supposed to be you're supposed to be made equitable within your own group. How could that ever be equitable? You cannot switch people's days off.
No.
So there's a scenario where we're going to run into where it's like we talked about earlier, is that a concession? And I know I'm going to keep saying I can't say that that's definitely going to happen because we haven't seen the complete language. And I know a couple people have said it's going to come soon. But if that's the case, that is going to be nearly impossible to make that equitable,
Yep.
correct?
And I'll go one further. Let's say that you have Tuesdays off, okay? And that's the only day you can work overtime, but somebody's on both lists and they have Tuesdays off. Who do they give it to?
Mm,
Because
yeah,
because they're on their own list now, so they have both non-sched days and sched days overtime. So
right.
they have their own list. They could get all of your Tuesdays and you could get nothing. You'll have a zero equitability. They'll have 180 hours for the quarter and it's going to come out fair. So how do you reconcile that?
Or even, every office is different, but so in my off, we have the 10-hour list, we have the 12-hour list, and we have a couple people on the 12-hour list, which means for someone working 10 is going to work over 10 hours, they have to maximize the 12-hour people. So now that there's only a 12, and I've told people, if you're in the 10-hour list and they give you a 2-hour, what we call a piece, but you put in for an hour on a 39.96 and they approve it, they only can give you the hour piece now. Now these people they're just gonna get it approved and they're gonna end up working till 7 o'clock or working 11 hours because there's no 12-hour list anymore. So it's like now you get people out there later. that person will get higher on the list. How do you now this other person isn't putting for time on their own route? It's just going to be muddy the
So,
waters to make everything not be able to be equitable.
and here's a good
Or
point.
what if you have somebody who wants to work 13 or 14 hours? Is that part of the equitability if somebody else doesn't want to?
Well, so that's a problem. From what I've read and everything, management decides over 12 hours who they will take volunteers and choose.
Right.
So not only that, here's a good one for you. So we do equitability. Usually they ask for equitability that first quarter you start negative. You know, they usually don't want to give you money that first time that you find it and say, "All right, well, let's start this guy negative next quarter."
It's like a makeup. They do a makeup
Makeup.
quarter.
So
Yeah.
what happens
Yeah.
in a situation where Paul was on all the overtime lists and now he's in a makeup situation, but he decides next quarter he only wants to be on NS list and he's negative 14 hours. Does that mean he's going to keep getting the NS? Does it affect when you change lists? There's no answers from what
Oh
I see so far on how we do that.
no, in that case there would be no opportunity to make you up. So it should be an actual financial grievance because you don't have the opportunity anymore.
Hmm.
I don't know.
It's just another example of like when this happened when the TA came out and we saw this. Brian tried to explain it, and I think a bunch of us in one of those Zooms kind of like I think 10 people in a row asked a question about it, and he just kept saying, "Oh, you'll be made equitable in your group," but until I don't know the last time he filed an Article 8 grievance. It doesn't seem like that's possible in this scenario. And is that giving the like we talked about earlier? Does it give the post office another out? And I
And
believe it does.
I
Well,
fully think like the idea of it being able to control what type of overtime you get had good ideas in it. You know, the look, some guys say I only want to work my NS day. Like I got kids at home. If I can get home by 5 o'clock every single day and work 6 days a week, I'd prefer that. Some guys, I need those 2 days off a week. The idea behind it was good. They didn't flush out the idea completely to make it happen. They kind of just threw it to the wind. And I hope to God it's very strong language in the JCAM. But until we start filing grievances on this and start nailing down language slowly and slowly over the years, it's going to be a fucking shit show.
yeah, I just don't see a way to make it work. To be honest with you, there's so many variables. Imagine a steward in a small office who's just barely got a hold of the 2 overtime list. Now he's got like 6 or 7 or 8. I mean, what are
Yeah.
you supposed to do with that?
Yeah, and like James said, then you got people like you shorthanded office. You got people saying, "I'm going to work 14 hours. I'm allowed to now." So now that person they're going to be so far ahead of everybody. And then if you're doing a like equity, getting called in on your NS day by hours, that person said, "Well, I'm willing to break the 12 hour. This person's not, but now the person I'm working for you. Now the person that doesn't want to work for you is getting called in on their NS day. It's going to create hostility among the overtime list because I don't know about your guys' office. My office is always like that. Why is he getting the piece?
Oh,
Why
yeah.
is she getting it
We
just
come here to work and
creates
make money. You're
right.
always going
It
to want
just
to make more. Well,
yeah,
here's
it's going
another
to
one.
create
What if I'm on both lists? I'm on the NS and I'm on the over 8 hours. Do you have to keep me equitable in both lists? And then what happens if I'm positive in this one, but I'm inequitable in this one? Will they try to make the argument that it washes?
I was
Do
told I
I?
was this.
What if I'm
I was
inequitable if I in 8 here, 14 here? Do we add the two so now I'm inequitable 22 to start the next quarter?
so I was told by Brian that was a separate list if you're on both lists.
and isn't don't you guys think it's weird that he's saying I I thought it was a typo. You have to sign both lists. Like if I'm on the 12-hour list, I'm obviously available on my day off. I don't need to sign it seems that
I thought
that's
there's
an
NS and any and all overtime.
he he's saying sign so if I'm on the 12 we're going to call it the 12-hour list. If I'm on the 12-hour list, now correct maybe someone can correct me, but I've seen this twice where it says you have to sign that list and then sign the NS day off list. But if I'm on the 12-hour list, I'm available for. Oh, actually, no, they
Right.
created the new
Well,
one where
only
you
for
just
days you're working, but you don't
yeah,
get your
then
NS
yeah.
day.
So you do have to sign both, which is just weird to me.
And then
Like
you
I
could be
get why
inequitable
now.
in both of them or in only one of them.
Which one am I equitable in? You know.
How do you make that argument? until we
And
knock
maybe
down
we'll have a
language, it's
meeting.
hell.
Maybe we'll have a meeting. Someone comes on and explains it to us, and we say, "Oh, that sounds right. I don't see how it's going to happen." But where's that meet? Like, there should be something out there. I know the thing just came out, but
Uh,
if it was predetermined, we should have got this way.
Way before. I mean, that's what I'm about to say. I mean, James, we were talking about this the other day. Why are they going to implement this thing in a contract, and then they don't have a presentation prior with the
Because we're
office?
going to have to flush this out through the grievance procedure and national grievances that define it through arbitrators. And that's going to take years of fucking headaches to get this defined. We're just, Article 8 already, you have a lot of language in regards to equitability to use and how it works and what arbitrators have said in regards to it. This is starting fresh, that we're going to have to build that language up to make it fully understand what the rule is. Right now, it has no formality to it. It's just a blob that the language will tighten it up. But it's going to take a long time to get that.
And the easier thing to do would have been, all right, we got this expedited arbitration. You know, I'm clearly give I'm clearly giving in on some things here. This is predetermined. Just give us the 2019 to 23 work rules, and we'll deal with it again when we have the process again in 26, because it's a year away,
Or
right?
not try to reinvent the wheel. It seems
Don't try to
Mhm.
reinvent the wheel.
when they said historic, it seems like the historic was in regards to there's two lists, the CCA mentorship program, these other ideas that they were talking in regards to the grievance procedure being on computers. It seems like they focused and made it historic in regards to the rules that are affecting us, not historic in the pay. And the rules that are affecting us, we've been told, were PASIC conventions. I haven't seen these PASIC conventions, but
Yeah.
you didn't have to do it all at once. You're doing it all at once and throwing a shit ton of shit at the wall and hoping something sticks.
Yeah,
Basically, let's
exactly.
be honest.
Yeah.
With
And so
that,
why would they do away with the 10-hour rule, the 10-hour list?
because they
It's
can't
a
have
it's a
18
it's
lists,
a
they can only,
preference.
we enough
But that's
lists.
a preference. That hurts nobody. It only helps a
Yeah,
carrier. It doesn't help. It's just a preference.
yeah.
You know,
That some
just go
people
to the
care
Yeah,
next
we
about.
guy.
all
I'd rather not do it. Why not?
Yeah, we all know when we signed the 10-hour list, we're available up to 12 hours. But like, why even get rid of that? It made no sense. I think
Yeah.
that was one of the things after the pay that a lot of people that have been around for a while were like, kind of like, this has to be a misprint. And I think at those raps or those like meetings right after the TA came out, I think people were like, no, it's true. This really happened. Everybody was just like, why? Why? Like, why?
You're right. And
There's no reason.
Paul, so I know you got a lot to say about the 12-hour, which is another fucking thing in this. The ability to work over 12. I've heard you be very passionate about this.
Well, so we argue about safety, right? We argue that this is an absolute 12-hour limit, and it's a safety violation to go over that. And now we've thrown that out the window. And like you said, James, if somebody does not want to work over 12 hours and they're not a strong backbone carrier, which we have a lot of people we represent that don't have the ability to stand up for themselves,
Because they
they're
haven't
gonna
learned the rules. They haven't been trained right.
right. They're gonna be told, hey, the union said you can work 13 hours. We really need you for 13 hours today. I'm gonna give you an hour on Route 7. And they're not gonna say no. Okay, I guess so. Now
And
they volunteered to work 13.
what happens in an emergency situation? I'd ask this question. So what happens in the worst of the worst case scenario where that mail has to get delivered and Barry's the CCA at 11 and a half, me, Paul, and Greg all say we're done at 12. Well, that mail still got to get delivered. That express mail still got to get delivered. That Amazon package still has to get delivered. What do they do? Do they force the 11 and a half guy over or do they force us over the 12? I was told it's non-grievable. So not only that, with it means if they force you, Paul, to do it because, hey, it's got to get delivered, I can't grieve it to get more. And they can
Right.
keep using that excuse because they don't want to put enough people in the offices to get the mail done. They decide they're going to do that to you every day, Paul. And this happens in offices.
And if they can establish that this 50% pay is the ultimate and final remedy, they can make that a part of cost of doing business.
Yeah.
I'm willing to pay that now to get the mail delivered. So, James, you're going out there. I'll pay that 50% penalty. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
That's it.
Paul, I think someone recently had success on an escalating remedy on a 60-hour violation. I would think that that's gone too. Like
So
if
that
you're allowed to violate it, then there's no more
You
escalating
can't
remedy,
grieve
right?
it. It's
yeah,
Can't
non-grievable.
grieve it.
I'll tell you, we can still try, but in the arbitration room, the Postal Service is going to say that the union has
Union
accepted
agree.
an established remedy. And how do we
You
get
know, and
past that?
you don't. And if you're, people need to think about that. If you're 12 hours is a long day, right? And most of the time, it's either in the winter or up here or in the summer because those are the times where the post office is always seems to be hurting or like a bad day. But think about that. If you have a 7:30 start time, you're going to still be delivering mail at 8 o'clock at night, right? And you just worked all day either in the cold or the heat. And guess what happens when you step out of the truck and it's dark and you blow out your ankle? You think they're going to run out? I mean, they're going to give you a CA1 because you're going to get your union involved. But you think they're going to run out there and say, "Oh, here's your CA1. We're going to get you clean," And someone's going to ask, "Well, why were they out there that late?" And I hope it doesn't take a tragic event, but and I've done it. I've worked past 12 hours. Some people just look at that V time, double time, and their eyes light up. But not anymore. I don't. I can tell you that because it, it gives the post office an out. Because if they can get James, me, Paul, and Barry to work over 12, guess what they don't have to do? They don't have to hire another body. They don't have to pay for their health insurance. They don't have to contribute to their thrift. It just gives them an out. I
Hey, Greg, now
personally,
you fix this? Pay the fucking CCAs. You'll have more CCAs apply to the job. You won't have to do this shit.
yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
It,
And the law of
the fit,
unintended consequences, if you think about it, you know what the 39-hour rule is, right? If a PTF works 39 hours for, I think it's 6 months,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
6
conversion.
months, if they would convert to a full-time position, if they work 39 hours a week, all they have to do one of those weeks is force James or force Greg to work that
yeah.
extra hour of V time, and they threw that extra job out the window for us.
Hmm?
You know?
Paul, it's funny you say that. I'm working on a 39-hour rule right now because we got a lot of PTFs. We got a lot of people out, and these PTFs have been. I just realized they've been on these hold downs for a couple months now, and I'm like, I got to investigate this, and I want these people as I don't want them to be PTFs. I want and the post op, postmaster might come to you and say, "Ah, come on, I don't," No, these people. I'm looking into it. If these people are going to be regulars, they deserve to be regulars. They're going to be regulars because what is the post office? What is the post office doing for them? I read the TA. I know what they think of the workforce.
Yeah.
So if it even if it just makes them pay somebody a couple more dollars an hour to make them regular, or, you know, screw them. Well, let's do it. Let's go. So
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and boys, the best part here is we just went an hour and a half talking about this stuff. Guess what? We didn't even talk about the pay and one of the shittiest parts. There's
Yeah.
so many issues in regards to this that the pay hasn't even gotten there, which they say is the most important part. Don't worry about the rest. Don't look behind the man behind the mirror. The pay on top of it doesn't even keep up with where it needs to be. The CCAs aren't getting paid. We're stifled with these fucking rules, eh, and we're supposed to be cheering. Are we supposed to be happy? I don't know if anybody else wants to go into any more of those situations. I know Paul has some resolutions, and we want to go through that to explain how we start affecting the change. We've been around for 50 years, and we need to start
yeah,
working
Yeah.
towards affecting a
yeah.
change.
Why don't we get to Paul's resolution? Because I think your two co-hosts, when John has to edit this, he's gonna probably you're probably gonna get an angry text. So
Yeah,
I think we
or I'm
want
gonna
to
get
get
my shit cut out. That's okay. So I guess education wise, what's the difference between a resolution and amendment? So an amendment changes the actual constitution of the NALC. A resolution just changes something that's not discussed. So if you think about it, like our 10-minute breaks in the morning that's in our contract, if we change that to a 15-minute break, that would be an amendment to our constitution. But if we just said during your 10-minute break you get to go outside to the taco truck, that's a resolution. So it kind of describes something different outside of the four walls of the well, in this case the Constitution. So we were talking earlier about how our tentative agreement that was failed and didn't get voted on was used against us. This is the third time that's happened, right, James? It's happened in the Healy Award. It
1978 and
happened
the Fish Gold in '07.
Fish Gold, and this is the third time. So why have not we done something to stop that from happening? Why is it happening again? So a simple resolution that I drew up was that, okay, and of course the resolution has a framework of you're supposed to list some of the facts, some of the reasons, then you list the final resolution to change it. So I'm just going to read the resolution to change it. It's just a couple sentences. The National Association of Letter Carriers shall not offer any tentative agreement to the membership for ratification unless said tentative agreement has an accompanying signed memorandum of understanding between the parties stating that bargaining offers, settlement language, and terms of the proposed tentative agreement shall be prohibited from being introduced or discussed by the parties in any future arbitration proceedings at the request of either party. So basically, if we go out on a limb and we have a tentative agreement we send out to the membership, we're not going to do that unless we have a signed agreement that it will not be used against us at arbitration. It's simple. Why haven't we done this 50 years ago? I think you're muted. I can't hear you, James.
Paul, you're right, and I think the reason you haven't seen it happen is because we don't know how to do it. There hasn't been the education. Explain to these people what happens when you have an idea for a resolution,
Yeah.
you bring it to your branch, you pass, you bring the whole process, because this is where, as we said, it's been 50 years. We haven't come up with these ideas yet. We haven't done anything because we're not passing the resolutions to bring it
Yeah.
up.
So a resolution is there a place that I can probably post this? Do you have a website that I can post this on?
Yes. Yep. We can get it on our Facebook
Okay.
page.
So I will put this on your Facebook page so people can look at it. But basically, if you have an idea for something you want to change, and you come up with it, all you have to do is write it up in a basic framework, like what you'll see at the one I did here. My branch did.
Whereas all
Yeah.
that.
Whereas, so for
Paul, I
instance,
think
one of the
that's a
where.
good Paul. I think that'd be good for you to read a little bit because I think people are going to say, well, why does it say whereas? I
Okay,
think
all
that
right.
if
So
people
I'll
hear
read a
that,
couple of them.
yeah,
There's five of them. I'll read a couple of short ones. Okay. Whereas failed tentative agreements have been voted down by the union membership, it should not serve as a framework for an arbitrator's deliberations. And whereas our local grievance procedure promotes open discussion and protects the interests of the parties by eliminating any settlement offers on a PS Form 8190 from being presented at Step B, and whereas the same protection should be present in negotiations related to our national agreement, now therefore be it resolved that, and then you read what you want your change to be. So you're
So it's almost
basically,
like bulletin points, whereas instead of that bulletin point, the fact you're given is
yeah,
whereas Paul is a
yeah,
letter carrier, whereas he's been in for 38
yeah.
years. Boom, boom,
Whereas
boom.
he's not making a lot of money, therefore be it resolved that he get a damn raise.
Mm.
Something like that. So once you have this idea framed out, and a resolution is much less stringent than an amendment because you're not changing the actual language of our national agreement. So for a resolution, you just have to present it at a branch meeting, and it has to be signed and agreed upon by the branch membership there, and signed by the secretary. Then you can forward it to national, and it becomes something that's going to be presented at the national convention for a discussion. You
And
might
you can
get
also bring it to your state.
you can also bring it to your state to do as well, right?
After you pass
So
it through the branch, if you want to get the state involved and get their signature on it and go through that
absolutely.
process.
Right. So basically, you could get a letter from National saying we agree with you. This is a great idea. We should have done this. We agree. Or you might get something saying we need some changes if we want this passed. Would you be willing to change this or that, this language? Or they're going to say we don't agree at all. So you're going to have to come to the convention and argue your case, which is a whole nother story. But I mean, so for this particular resolution, what do you guys think? That we should
Paul.
have the right
So
to not include a failed tentative agreement if we go to arbitration.
Paul, so just so people know, so what you're saying is that just to use this TA as an example, the fact that they're using the tentative agreement in the arbitration, your resolution would eliminate that and basically saying start fresh, right?
Exactly. That's
Th-
exactly what President Renfro said at one of the COP meetings. He said that if this fails to be ratified, we will start from scratch. It will be gone, and
So
that didn't happen.
the arbitrator should never hear 1.3, 1.3, 1.3. The arbitrator should never, and this was expedited, the arbitrator should never hear, if they get into Article 8, should never hear there's these new lists. These guys present a new case in front of the arbitrator. And if it wasn't expedited, where we treated this like mediation, it would have been our lawyers and the witnesses being, interviewed and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So your resolution basically says you cannot use this TA in arbitration. My question to the public is, why would anybody be against that? I want
100%,
people to think.
because you think about it, either party, like let's say you and I, Greg, are deciding on a contract, and we're like, okay, I think we should get $1,000 raise. You say 500, but we're both happy with our positions. So we're not going to argue. Put the failed tentative agreement in front of the arbitrator. We're happy where we stand. But where we had a 2-to-1 negative feedback about our tentative agreement. We don't want that in front of an arbitrator.
No.
And it gives the arbitrator, you know what the art, and let's say this wasn't already decided ahead of time. Let's say the arbitrator really looked at it. The arbitrator could look at it and say, wait a minute, the man, Brian would have been a witness, and then the other, if it wasn't expedited, he agreed to this.
Yeah.
So
He
he
felt it
can't
was
think it's
fair.
bad. So so if you go in fresh with Paul's resolution, and I think my membership would like this, because I think my membership, if I ever get the votes, would probably be 90 to 10 a no vote. So I think they would be like, of course we don't want the TA to come up in an arbitration, because it only can hurt us, right?
And all we have to do is when we're negotiating with the postal service, we're going to say, listen, this resolution was passed, and we can't even sit at the table unless you're going to agree to this. We're not gonna sit here and have an open mind and discuss options with you if it's going to be used against us.
And
Simple.
resolutions are really the way to affect change in your union. And this is something that, Paul, you're going out there and doing. And I wish a lot of other guys knew it. I hear so many people when I talk to younger carriers that go, I want this, we need this, we need to fight for that. And they want to do these extraordinary measures to affect them. And I say, okay, have you brought this as a resolution to your branch?
Yeah.
Well, no. Okay, did it pass? Well, no, it didn't pass. Okay, you got to get people on board. We
Yeah.
have a process. The problem is we have not been using the process to affect change. I believe it was Karif who had said recently that you've seen an explosion of Article 10 charges of carriers filing it against their own presidents because they heard about it through the Renfro situation. How long have there been issues with branch presidents not doing their jobs that carriers didn't know about Article 10 charges to file them? These are the processes that we need to learn. And the resolutions are a great one. We saw how they played out at the convention and your ability to vote as a body for these things and affect real change.
Okay. You want to talk amendments now?
Let's hear it.
Okay, so amendments are much more serious because you're changing the actual language of our Constitution. I'm going to tell you guys right now, this contract, as bad as it is, we had it coming. We had this coming for a long time because we have way, way, way too much power in the president of our union. So right now, the president of our union has the sole. Let me read this to you. The president shall have the authority and responsibility for carrying out the collective bargaining duties of the union. That's it. He has total power to carry out the collective bargaining duties of the union. Total, unfettered. So any Article 10 charge you're thinking about for him doing something wrong, you might get him for delaying something, maybe possibly. You might get him for not having open bargaining because there was a resolution for that. But you're not going to get him for selling us down the river if that's what happened.
And it sounds
Because
like it takes away the strength of the executive body to actually do anything. Like they're
yeah,
there, but they're just a willing participant watching it, not able to really get involved in it.
yeah. So for the amendment I have, there's two parts that are affected. One is Article 9, which is the duties of the president, and all I'm asking is that we refer to Article 16 to expand upon his responsibilities and limitations, and that we also add something about the president shall have the sole collective bargaining duties of the union, and in doing so will act in the best interest of the membership. So I think that's a big one because if we have a majority of our union saying the president did something wrong, now we can address it.
Mhm.
Otherwise, he has the sole bargaining unit to do anything he wants.
And let me make it clear, nobody should be scared of this because if you don't feel you've done anything wrong, why would you be concerned of this? I mean,
Right.
this
Why
is the
why
same
would you
thing.
not want to bargain in the best interest of the membership,
Me
right?
and Greg have said it where with elections and stuff, we have told people like, "Hey, run. I'd rather 8 people run against me." I've told this to Barry. Barry's my VP. He said the same way because it shows participation. And if I'm
Yeah.
doing my job, I'm not concerned about losing my position. If I'm concerned about losing my position or getting in trouble, it means I'm not doing my job correctly.
Yep.
And maybe
Yep.
that should make me look in my soul a little bit and
Yeah.
change my
Yeah.
direction.
So hey,
But
before I read this to you, I want to run
go
a
ahead.
scenario by you guys, okay?
Mhm.
Right now, the way our Constitution is written, this is what could happen. Now picture this, okay? And I'm not talking about Brian Renfro. This might be our next president. This could be one down the road. It could be the next one we have. Who knows? If the Postal Service passed a note across the desk to a current national president and said, this is a bank account number, and there's $10 million in that bank account. I want you to destroy the union. All the president would have to do, okay, and this is within his power. He has the ability to elect or appoint whoever negotiates the tentative agreement. He can pick 2 people he knows and say the tentative agreement is going to be every single thing you've seen about our pay scale is gone. Every carrier will make $10 an hour. That's the new contract. He can
And
make he can put that in the mail, and there's nothing we can do about it. And it comes back 100% disapproved, right? People are picketing outside the doors of his Washington mansion, but it doesn't matter because he has the sole ability to decide what goes to arbitration.
yeah, and look, Paul isn't saying that that's happened, but Paul makes a good point of, look, we deal with extremities. Like
Right, right.
why wouldn't
So,
we want this? Because that's an extreme example, but it
right,
shows how much strength is there.
right. So then you go to arbitration, right? He's got the sole ability, whoever this future president would be, to choose again who's negotiating at the arbitrating table. He could put 2 people in there that are his friends and tell the arbitrator, "Yeah, $10 is what we want. Sign it. We're done."
Where's our
Every
voice? Where's
every
our
carrier in
protection?
this country, every carrier in this country would be making $20,000 a year, and there's not a damn thing we can do about it.
And where's our
Nothing.
protection? Our MBAs and our executive staff are the people that are supposed to speak for us.
Right.
Where's
Exactly.
anybody speaking for us in this stance?
So this is what
Oh,
go ahead, Greg.
go ahead. No, go ahead. No, go ahead. You're on a roll. Go, go, go.
Yeah, okay. So this is what I propose to do it for an amendment, okay? So I'm just going to read this through like there's 2 paragraphs here. Any tentative agreement reached by the union must be presented to the Executive Council for review and be accepted by a majority vote of such prior to submission to the membership for ratification. So all that means is that if Brian Renfro or anybody else comes up with a contract, they're going to run it by the Executive Council. They're not going to mail out something that's going to cost us $800,000 in postage until we have a good handle on not just one person thinks it's the right contract, but at least 15 people think it's the right contract. I think that makes common sense because you heard people from the Executive Council saying they weren't even talked to. They were told at the last minute this is what's going through. You have no say in it, no vote in it. I mean, how to me? I mean, what do you guys think? Does that not sound
So
reasonable?
it does, and this is the problem you run into we've probably heard this for the last couple of months is when you're the lone person that does it, all the responsibility falls on you. So imagine, if you had, I don't know the executive council. I obviously I know who they are, but I don't imagine having another set of eyes or ideas in there. They're not dumb people. The business agents are not. They know what they're doing. James Henry and Nicole Ryan, they've been around for a while. Why not use these people as resources? Because when you do it all by yourself, the result falls on you. 71% didn't vote against the executive council. I mean, they voted against against Brian. So when you give one person that much power, unless you get an incredible deal, you're just going to get all the blame, and it's way too much power for one person to have. I
Yeah,
delegate as much as I can to my stewards. I'm sure you do too. And if you had a major decision in your office or in your branch, you would ask other people's opinion. You
oh
wouldn't
yeah,
go and negotiate the local by yourself. You would
yeah,
form a committee to do it. So
Your
I, I think
consigliere.
I yeah, yeah. I don't think it's ridiculous to make these amendments, and or the resolution. And if people, I would also encourage people to get elected as delegates for the convention, because the resolutions are the best part.
Yes.
It's
And
when yeah, go ahead.
so the second part of this amendment, just so that I can get this out, so because I really want to fire up and talk about it. So the other part is, if a tentative agreement fails and it goes to arbitration, right now the president has the sole determination of what goes to arbitration. So I think that too should be run by the executive council. They should have the ability to either suggest something or petition something to be added, like maybe if Renfro says, or somebody says, I don't want to talk about a career position. I just want to talk about wages. Maybe a Mike Cariff or maybe a James Henry would say, well, you know what? I want to talk about a full time PTF position. I don't want to have CCAs. Let's vote on whether or not we're going to add that to our discussion. Or if somebody wants to talk about something that's like the failed work rules, reducing the fixed office time, maybe somebody from the executive council would say, I want that pulled out. Let's vote on that. Let's vote on pulling that out. Just so that we have something that goes to arbitration. Should not be, again, one person's idea, because one person was already theoretically wrong on the first tentative agreement. Now they're going to decide what's going to be the final solution for us. It's kind of, I mean, to me, we've been on a train track that's been greased with butter, just waiting to hit a brick wall, and it's going to happen. If this isn't it, something else is coming our way.
And you're right, Paul. I mean, the idea behind all this is you have the president who's so far high up, separated from what we do, that they have these NBA officers that talk to the branch presidents who are in direct action with the actual people that are doing it. If you're just making the decisions without hearing the voices all the way up the ladder, how are you really knowing what your people are going for or want or interested in? You're only hearing
Yeah,
a couple of
why
voices.
not run it? Why not have a Zoom? Like, I'm not saying you're going to listen to 300 presidents, but why not get a group and say, hey, what are you guys hearing? Or what are you ladies hear? What are you hearing from your members? Like, how bad is it going to be? Like, is table two that bad? Are these people really hurting? Obviously, yeah. But another thing is, I've wondered this. So, and we're all human, right? Someone takes a shot at you or runs against you, yeah, you want to encourage it, but how much of James Henry and Mike Cariff announcing their running before, like during this whole TA period, really affected Brian to be like, well, I don't want to ask for their advice, because what if they have a good idea and they take credit for it, and then I don't get reelected. I really hope that's
I'd
not a
hope to
part of it,
God not. I'd hope
I,
to God not.
but
I hope our interest
and,
is
you
the
know,
most thing that's important.
yeah, that's my hope, is just like, if the three of them came together and said this is the best for the city letter carrier, because we talked about this the other day and it's really a concern I have. And you guys look out for your carriers, the business agents for the most part, probably at a different level, I hope, look out for the city letter carriers. But who down in Washington is looking out for the city letter carrier? I just haven't seen it, and that's a pretty bad scenario. That, and we've you've heard it, like, who sticks up for the letter carriers down there, right? There's so many people down there working. That's a huge office. I don't know how many people work there full time, but are they talking to people from their branches saying what's going on, or are they just so out of touch? Where, and I believe it's the latter, because look at all these podcasts, these groups that have popped up
Well, I would
over the
say it'd be
last
certain
year.
regions, right? Because there's not a
Yeah.
uniform program. I mean, I feel, at least my feelings in our region is we are able to say how we feel about things, and the hope is that it is getting in front of the president. I know I hear in some areas that their MBA is completely unavailable to them, and that is a shame because, as I said, that message should be going up. It should be the carriers to the branch presidents, the branch presidents to their regional director, the regional director getting in front of the president. That's the way our voice gets up that ladder.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, and I do want to tell you, James. I feel free to post these on your website. I'll send them to you
I
if
would
I
love
haven't
to,
sent them.
Paul.
But I do want to tell you, and I want a disclaimer out there. This is not affiliated with James Henry. It's not affiliated with Mike Cariff. It's not affiliated with anybody, with Brian Renfro. This is just myself and my branch that put this out there, and I encourage every other branch that feels as strongly to just put your name on your own and send this through. And if we can actually send these amendments and this resolution with such force to national, they might consider it and consider implementing this stuff before the next contract, which is going to be before the next convention. So if
And
we can
other
actually
resolutions.
get the executive council working with the president, whether he likes it or not, because he knows the membership wants us to, maybe it'll get us somewhere, you know?
Yeah, and look, we gave these people the keys. You now know how to do amendments. You now know how to do resolutions. Get the hellhounds out there. Get them in front of your branches. Get them to the state. Get them to the national. You now have an ability to affect change. You know how to start the car. It's on your court. Are you gonna do it? Because you
Yeah.
need to if you want to change and
You know,
affect
you,
this.
you guys just brought up something about the when the contract ends, and I don't want to go on another conspiracy theory here. I feel like I'm like Joe Rogan's podcast or something, but um, why does it end in May? It ended in November. Why did they? Why did they change that? Give me a reason. There's no reason to change it. Um,
I can give you one reason, but
who?
it's a conspiracy reason.
Did, is it give me another shot to negotiate? Because I doubt Tolino's going to be around. So it's like
Well,
I'm
Toledo
going
was
to
just named the
negotiate.
postmaster general.
Yeah, I mean, there's rumors about that, but like, why why did it end? Why does it end before the convention, before the election? Like, if I was his campaign manager, I'd be like, I don't know if you want to have another, because if it was
Are we going to be
70
in the
to
same
30,
position?
yeah, if it was 70 to 30 last time, social media is only growing, these podcasts are only growing. You're gonna lose 90 to 10. There's probably going to be 150,000 people voting this time. Then your election is in 3 months. You're screwed.
How would you like to be at the convention in Los Angeles to hear the contracts coming soon? 2 more
Uh,
weeks.
Oh my God!
Doing
Or
this
what?
all over again.
Or what if God forbid, right? God forbid, the writing is on the wall and Renfro has done some polling and his numbers don't look good. What does that tell us for our contract? What could he do? You know,
Mhm.
with the current rules in place, what could happen?
well, that
We
brings
we
up who's looking out for the city letter carriers, because that's when that's a doomsday scenario. And if it gets to there, that's when we have to really start talking about no confidence, because you would hope that someone would get involved and say he knows he's not going to win. I don't know what his next job is. Maybe he's going to run for Congress down in Mississippi. But if he's not looking out for us, somebody down there better step up and say, all right, if you're not going to look out for them, I certainly will. And who's that person? I hope there's
And, I,
somebody, because they will gain some steam.
and I'm hoping that that is not a scenario. Look, I'm in the best intentions that anybody who's taken one of these positions and moved up the ladder, their number one goal is the city letter carrier. That should be their number one goal. Shouldn't be their retirement. Shouldn't be their not carrying on the street. You should have the passion to help city letter carriers all the way up the ladder to the top guy. And I would hate to think that that would be something that is possible, because where's the teeth? Where's the lions? I don't want to use the words lions. I'm not connecting with any group. Where's the pit bulls that just want to destroy? Where's that anger that used to be there, that I want to win at every cost? It's gotten
Yeah.
too nice, and the idea that
Do you
somebody
get?
doesn't have that mentality at that top of the ladder is goddamn scary.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember the?
We've never been in this kind of position, really. I mean, we've been very fortunate where every president that we've had, I think, has acted in our best interest. They all haven't been great. And I think back in uh who was it that is it Rademacher that Sombrado beat?
Yeah,
Is that
Yeah,
who we
so
beat?
yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
yeah.
that was probably the last time one of our presidents was not acting in our best interest, and he got voted out. But we've never had this kind of a doomsday scenario where what could happen. You need to think about it. It's human nature. What could happen? You know,
I don't
we're
remember
gonna
it ever being this
some.
testy,
Yeah,
honestly,
Oh, this
for
is
a
this is the
president.
worst it's ever been. I mean, I see why these groups have popped up, and we have our own little. I don't even know if it's BFN, or I'm just a city. I'm an NALC local president, branch president, but we've seen these groups pop up, and I don't think I say sad, but it's like we all, the fact that it has to happen is on one person, because these groups got created because they didn't think this guy was working within their best interest. So the CLC gets created, BFN gets created. Tyler Vassar goes down to the convention and challenges them and gets people. Oh, maybe I'm a part of BFN now, and it's like, well, no, everybody's NALC, and you need 260,000 strong. Obviously everybody's not always going to agree on the same thing. Everybody's got different politics, different values and beliefs, but someone's got to bring this union together, because you keep getting these caucuses that split off, and eventually you're never going to get
Well,
anything done.
it's about not being scared of them. I mean, the idea of it is that you have a group of carriers that are affecting one same goal. They start building momentum that are affecting the same interest. Then national should come in and listen to what they're saying and say, well, where can we meet? Okay, so you guys like this idea. We're not too far off. You know what? Maybe what if we can do this now? And let's get somewhere. Let's work to the same goal. The groups aren't trying to eat the NELC. They have common goals that they're trying to present. And if you listen to their goals and try to meet them in the middle or try to work out things, in the end, we all want the same thing. Letter
James, didn't
carriers
you?
treated well.
Wasn't it you, James, that asked Brian in that interview if he'd be willing to meet with any of these groups? And he said, "I'll meet with any individual, but not with any group."
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's an understanding of this. I don't know if it's fear of caucuses or just those rebel rousing, shit starting kids shaking their fists at the porch. Uh, but again, they're all in the same common goal. We're all trying to make it better. So why don't you invite them to the table and try to see? All right, whatever. You want $100 an hour for the letter carrier. You know what? I would love that too. We can't get that. But how about we start at this? How about we attack? What do you think? How do we present this message? And I'll tell you, some of these young cats, they're great on the internet. That's something the NELC is completely missing out on. They're great at the podcasts. Again, the NELC is not reaching the people with these messages. Bring them in, learn their strengths, and let's start building it back, because we all want the same goals, the NELC to be the strongest union that's fucking out there.
Yep.
After he was on with you guys, and I gave him credit for doing Saturday night, doing 3 hours with you guys, and we've talked about this. You guys were not easy on him. What I thought about after that was, I wonder what when he closed that window. I really hope his reaction was, man, I got a branch president, a kid down in Florida that's been there for 3 years, another guy that's been there for 8 years. I really hope his reaction was a positive, that I have three guys on a podcast on a Saturday night. They didn't have to do this, but they care so much about the future that they're willing to challenge their branch president, because I mean their national president, because it's not as much as people say, "Oh, I don't like them, I don't like them." When you're face to face with them, even on a Zoom, it's a little weird. And I know the first time I asked him a question 4 years ago about start time, I was nervous, and now it's just second nature. So, but back to the podcast, I really hope that he took that as a positive, that you guys were willing to spend the time and ask him those questions. And my fear is that he just rolled his eyes and said, "Thank God that's over."
I
Because
felt he did take it to a positive. I had a couple of conversations after him.
oh, good.
And
I'm glad that makes me feel better, because I was really thinking about
but
that.
my thing with this is we're three of many. And some of these kids that I work with, they're so goddamn intelligent in aspects that I don't. And there's sometimes I just want to shake them going, I would love to bring you to my branch, because I don't have anybody like you that knows how to
Mhm.
work this program or that or this. But then I see they're not being used. And
Yeah.
it's like, well, we have a problem and we have great minds that can affect it. Why are we not reaching these kids to get them involved in the branches, to then be able to fix the branches to get it all the way up and bring us into the future, instead of falling behind on the old ways and not teaching them, and having guys that are way up here that maybe not even carrying anymore, making all the rules when they're kind of out of touch in regards to what it is.
Capone, we see it every Sunday. And Paul and Barry, we were planning this rally. We had a great group. Everybody had good ideas, and of course, like anything else, Friday and Saturday before, it turned into a shit show where we had some controversy. And instead of just screaming and accusing people of this, what we did was we took a vote and we said, whatever the result of the vote is, this is what we're going to do. We're not going to, because some people wanted to do some other things with the rally. And we took the vote, it worked. And then we showed up Sunday morning and all worked together and pulled off the rally. It's like that should be how the
And
national
we
union
and
runs.
that's how we handled it. We had a discussion and we gave our sides, they gave their sides. They were willing to listen to the sides and they were strong in their convictions and what they felt. And it didn't take away from it, but they were willing to listen. And we're in a position where
Yes.
our job is to negotiate. When we file grievances, we are in some form doing a negotiation or trying to get somebody to see our side to a certain extent. So you would imagine the higher you get up in doing this, you should be better and better at it. But we're not doing it with our own members. I mean, the idea is that you're able to walk in there with management, argue your case, and get them to go, "Fuck, they got us. All right, all right, all right. What? How can we do this least painful? You won." But we can't get to young kids that have been in for 3 years and do it with them. We can't negotiate and work out and explain if that side's wrong. Explain why. Get them to see and get them to understand the process.
Right. Yeah.
100%. Yep.
It's insane. I
Well,
mean, is there any closing things you guys wanted to talk about before we tie this up?
I would just remind everybody that these amendments and this resolution, this isn't just something that one branch has to do. Like James said, go back, take these to your branch, make them your own, and submit them. Mail them to national. Let's. I'm going to the committee of presidents meeting in about a week here, and I'm going to ask them to do the same thing. We need to change is not going to happen from one person because they will eat you alive at one of these conventions if they don't like what you have to say. And they're not going to like this. No one likes having power taken away, but we have to take our power back. So, and it's going to take everybody on the floor of the convention to say, it's time to limit the president's power and to give a little bit back to the people.
Don't be afraid of change. I thought this process was to leave it in a better place. I feel like, at least on the small scale, the reps before me wanted to pass this on in better shape. And when you're starting out, you don't see it on the national scape or even the regional. You see it at the local, and that's always been my goal: is to leave this my local better when I'm done with it. So shouldn't that be the process all the way at the top? To leave it better to the next group and bring the next group into it so that they can make this better. If we just keep focusing on one end of the spectrum and not leaving it in a better place, what's going to happen when these guys are gone and
Yeah.
these younger guys are put in that position and they've never fucking learned the process?
Yeah, and that's exactly what this is all about. It's all about the future right here. I mean, these resolutions aren't going to help us today. It's going to help the people tomorrow when they have the same problem in front of them.
I mean,
Change takes
Paul,
time.
Paul, you're absolutely right with the change. These branches need to understand on how to submit these resolution or amendments for the change. And we could talk about this, but for whoever's listening, these branches need to learn how to submit these things, and that's where we're going to create the change within the union. So
Yeah.
I appreciate you bringing all that up. It's huge.
Oh, I'm happy to. Anybody can Google. If you Google NALC constitutional amendments, they print something every year in the postal bulletin that tells you exactly how to do it. Nicole does. It's real simple. It's
Now, how many branches are posting that on their union board for regular carriers to see? I mean, it almost seems like a power thing because some of these branch presidents are so ineffective to change, like their
yeah,
leadership. They're not going to want this younger kid to start something and try to affect change, especially
yeah.
if they're concerned about their position.
No, some people are. You're always going to have people that are status quo. I believe in our leaders. I'm not going to look at what they're doing. I'm just going to trust them. Well, I think that time is past.
Look, somebody had to look at the steam powered engine and say, you know what, this ain't working. We got a better way. And people thought that guy was crazy too.
Yeah, yeah. You're gonna dig gas out of the ground and light it on fire? Fucking
Yeah.
crazy.
But it invented change. You got to think outside the box. Everything that we've ever
But
seen change is affected from thinking outside the box. And the person who affected change was always called crazy at first or just a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But you gotta get involved. You can't be you gotta go to your meetings. I know some branches it's easier said than done, but you have to if you want training, you gotta go to your presidents and say, I want to get involved. How do I get involved? I want to be a steward. Eventually I want your job. And if they don't listen to you, just if you get shot down once, keep going back. Um, educate yourselves. Anybody can read the JCAM, right? It's a contract. Someone asked me the other day, "What's the JCAM?" I said, "What's it's a
Rabid,
contract."
rabid tenacity. Just keep on coming at it like a
Yeah,
honey badger. Just every time you're shot down, go right back at it, and
yeah,
you'll win out.
yeah, and ask questions. Listen to podcasts. There's certainly plenty of them out there. Um, yeah, just I would say thanks for letting me do this with you, James. I think we wanted to encourage other presidents, at least in the region, or I know all over the country, to come get involved with this. Is It's a good discussion. There's everybody's got good ideas, and I think it's the more voices that are heard, and I think it's good to hear from people throughout the country that what's going on in their branches and what do you guys think about this. And there's just it's always evolving. There's always going to be more info. We're just hit with new information every day now, it seems.
And
So
we're gonna do this monthly. And I did want to hit on one last thing: is the letter carrier political fund. I think guys need to understand how much that affects us, how much little amount of money, percentage of carriers that donate to it. Um, it goes to both sides. You can look up the numbers and see it online that it goes to Democrat, Republican, and Independent. It goes to the people that we need to affect change on a national landscape, and we are still governed by the government in some way, shape, or form. That we need these things, laws passed. We have HR 70 to protect the Postal Service. I know one that has been going up now is to stop union rights, and we are included in those. I think it's 1256, HR 1256. Um,
Also,
we need to be donating that. It's our future. And, just as little as $5 as a paycheck can really make this go further, even including the NELC, because they may be coming for the NELC. They may be coming for our unions. I don't play this. I don't do the scare tactics. But why not be prepared for $5? All these fights will be for nothing if it's not around. So
al-
I implore you all to look into Letter Carry Political Fund, talk to your branch presidents, try to be involved because that's how we protect this all for us.
also too, the other bill that's on the floor, HR 1522, the Federal Retirement Fairness Act. That's huge for guys like me with non-career time, and especially with the CCAs in there now doing their period without being converted. Once they get converted, but that time, even if it's 2 years, it still counts. So you know, I hope these branches are promoting this and getting their members on the page to contact the congressman and congresswoman to push for these bills on the floor. The more members that do it or know about it, hopefully it gets us somewhere.
And that's the only way we do it. That the disaster relief fund helps other carriers. That's another one we got to get involved in. We have the processes to start fighting some of these battles, and we got to get the message out. So, affect change in your branch. Get involved in letter carrier political fund to affect change on the national level in regards to rules affecting the post office. Run for positions, run resolutions, run amendments. You guys want the change? Be the change that you want and fight for it. This is a call for everybody to fight for their branch, to fight for their jobs. We need to affect change.
yeah, I said this. I don't know. I'm just gonna close on this. I said this at one of my installations dinner, and it always stuck with me. It just came popped in my head one day, and when you look at the post office and the carriers, and people think we are part of the government as much as we are a offshoot of it, but you know, and I know we have carriers that were fans of this president, but Ronald Reagan once said the scariest words in the English language are "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." And I said the Opposite of that is the city letter carriers. Because think about what we do. Like, think about when you look at the postal record, the people that have saved lives, that call on customers. We are the government, and we do help, right? We do deliver medications. We were out there during COVID. So if we can get people to take that attitude, the change will happen, but it's getting people to take that approach to this job that I am constantly working at in my branch. When I see people that I hand the union slip to, I walk around, I hand everybody a letter, a piece of paper. The union meeting's in 2 weeks. This is what's going on. Try to attend. And then I turn around, they just throw it in the garbage. Like, I don't need to go to that. Somebody else will handle it. It's depressing to me because I'm like, if I could get 150 people at a union meeting, I'll sit there for 3 hours and talk. We just sat here for 3 hours, and I'll do it once a month, at a union meeting. So
Next man
I
up.
just need,
Always the next
yeah,
man up.
just take your job. As much as you might be dissatisfied with the TA, as much as you don't want to contribute to the political fund, sometimes you got to do stuff that makes you uncomfortable. And if we want this job to be around in 20 years, and I certainly do, I don't want it just for me. I want to see this service around. We have to start the younger crowd getting involved, contributing, just taking the job a little more serious. And I'm sure there's going to be people listening that don't take it as serious. It's like a paper route. They just go there. You have to take this serious, because the better service we provide, the next TA might be bigger, because they'll say, well, maybe we can't live without the post office. So I just want to encourage people to do that. And just, thank James. Thanks for letting me do this with you tonight. I just wanted to say that too.
Paul, any last words?
No, thank you for having me on, brother. And I'd love to do it again with you guys. It's a great idea. Get our voices out.
Perfect. Public lines, Barry, what you got?
No, I just want to tell everybody, keep up the good fight. Keep up. Obviously, with my experience, I'm in this for a long run, and I just hope people take from this podcast tonight that it's possible. You just got to keep up the fight. Everyone that participates, we will get there. I'm a believer in that, and I don't want to see the service go anywhere. So I hope everyone participates and gives it their all, because in the end, everyone needs a job. So without a job, you ain't shit. So let's keep up the fight, right?
And let's not give up the battle. I mean, taking it from Barry, what happened with the TEs, with the CCAs. One thing I think that I've heard Barry say a lot was, why weren't guys looking out for me? Why weren't guys above me looking out for me? Well, now Barry's out there looking out for CCAs. We need to keep this process going. We need everybody getting involved and fighting, so that we don't deal with this the next contract, something worse the next contract. Get involved, and let's really change this so it doesn't happen again. It's disappointing, I understand, but we're still in a fight. We've lost a fight, but we haven't lost the war yet. And with that, I hope we get to do this more often. We want to get into as much educational things, along with as also communication, effective opinions, so you guys can hear how Carrier sounds. Thank you guys for coming on. Peace and love to everybody, and let's really get out there and start changing shit. Thank you guys.